The rain came down in sheets over Arlington National Cemetery. Cold, relentless. The kind of rain that soaked through dress blues and turned the manicure grass into something closer to a battlefield. Elena Cross stood alone in Section 60, staring at a headstone that had weathered 15 years of storms just like this one. Master Chief Thomas Cross, United States Navy, 1965 to 2009. Devoted father, silent guardian. She was 28 years old and she had killed 3 of her own teammates. Not directly, not with her hands, but she might as well have. The math was simple enough. Her mistake. Their blood. No equation in the world could balance that ledger. 8 months since Syria. 8 months since the mission that should have been textbook simple turned into a nightmare of screaming and fire, and Martinez choking on his own blood while Chen bled out faster than Doc could patch him. 8 months since Wilson threw himself in front of her and took 3 rounds to the chest because he believed she was worth saving. She was not worth saving. The rain mixed with something else on her face, but she did not wipe it away. Let it fall. Let it all fall. The water pooled around her boots, and she thought about the last time she stood here, her father's funeral. She had been 13. Her mother had held her hands so tight it hurt. The Navy Honor Guard had folded the flag with movements so precise they looked like machines. 21 guns had fired, and each shot had felt like another piece of her childhood dying. Her father had been 44 when he died. Helmand Province, Afghanistan. The official report said he died covering his team's retreat. 8 confirmed kills with the weapon he had designed himself. A crossbow, medieval and impossibly deadly. He saved 11 American lives that day before the Taliban overwhelmed him. One of those 11 Americans was Senior Chief Petty Officer Henry Kane. Everyone called him Doc, combat medic, best trauma surgeon in 3 war zones. He had been 47 then. Old by operator standards, but too valuable to retire. Her father had pulled him out of an ambush, carried him 200 meters under fire, told him as they reached safety that brothers never leave brothers behind. Doc had stood at the funeral with a face like carved granite. He had promised her mother he would always be there if Elena ever needed anything. Then he disappeared into whatever classified hole special operations people disappeared into when they were not supposed to exist. Elena had not seen him in 15 years. She reached out and traced the letters carved into the stone. Thomas Cross. The name felt like an accusation. Like every moment she breathed was stolen from someone more deserving. Her father had been a legend. Master Chief, SEAL Team 3, 30 years of service. Panama, Somalia, Iraq, Afghanistan. He had killed more enemy combatants than most infantry companies. He had saved more American lives than most field hospitals. And what was she? A washout, a failure, a disgrace in dress blues who worked maritime security at Virginia Beach because the Navy did not want her near anything classified anymore. Not after Syria. The mission brief had been clean. Intelligence said 6 targets, high-value Taliban commanders meeting in a compound outside Damascus. Rules of engagement were weapons-free, collateral damage acceptable. Her team had inserted at 0200, 4 operators, her as squad leader, Martinez on point, Chen covering rear, Wilson as Overwatch sniper. They reached the compound in 40 minutes. Thermal imaging showed 6 heat signatures exactly where intel predicted. Elena made the call. Breach and clear, standard room clearing. They stacked on the door. Martinez placed the charge. 3, 2, 1. The explosion should have taken down the door. Instead, it triggered a secondary device. An IED wired to the frame. The blast threw Martinez back 15 feet. Shrapnel tore through his body armor like paper. Chen caught the worst of it, his legs just gone from the knees down. Wilson broke cover to drag them clear, and that was when the machine gun opened up from a window they had not even known existed. She could still hear the sound, the M240 hammering rounds at 700 per minute. Wilson's body dancing as the bullets stitched across his chest. Martinez screaming her name, Chen begging for his mother in Spanish. The smell of burning flesh and cordite, and something sweet she later learned was aerosolized blood. She had frozen. 3 full seconds. In combat, that was an eternity. By the time she returned fire, the damage was done. Martinez died in the chopper on the way out. Chen bled to death in the field despite everything Doc tried. Wilson was dead before he hit the ground. 6 heat signatures. But intel had been wrong, or sold. There had been 12 hostiles in that compound. 12 men with automatic weapons and explosives and a complete layout of American tactics. Someone had known they were coming. Someone had fed them to the slaughter. The after-action report was classified. The official story was training accident. 3 SEAL operators killed during the live fire exercise. Their families got flags and medals and pensions. Elena got an administrative discharge. Not dishonorable, not even general. Just quietly shown the door with a handshake and a thank you for your service, and a strong suggestion that she never speak about what happened. She had not touched her service weapon since, had not fired a shot, had not even looked at her father's crossbow where it sat in storage collecting dust for 15 years. The weapon that made Thomas Cross a legend, the weapon that should have passed to her. She was not worthy of it, would never be worthy. Thunder rolled across the cemetery. Lightning split the sky with veins of white fire. The storm was getting worse. She should leave. Drive back to her apartment in Virginia Beach. Shower, sleep, pretend tomorrow would be different. But her feet would not move. She stood there in the rain and stared at the headstone and wondered what her father would think of her now. Would he be disappointed, ashamed, or would he understand that some people were just born to fail? A voice spoke behind her, rough, gravelly, the voice of a man who had smoked too many cigarettes and shouted too many orders and lived too many years in places where death came looking daily. He would not want you standing here like this. Elena turned fast, hand instinctively reaching for a weapon that was not there. A man stood 20 feet away, old, 60s at least. Gray hair buzzed military short, face lined like a roadmap of every bad decision and hard choice a man could make. He wore jeans and a canvas jacket that did not quite hide the bulk of body armor underneath. Rain ran down his face, but he did not seem to notice. She recognized him instantly. Doc Kane. He nodded, walked closer, moved with the careful precision of someone whose body had been broken and rebuilt too many times. There was a hitch in his left leg. Old wound maybe, or just age catching up to a man who had spent 40 years asking his body to do things no body was meant to do. "You look like hell," he said. "You look old." "I'm old. 62 next month. Mandatory retirement. Navy does not let us fossils stick around much longer." They stood in silence for a moment, rain hammering down, thunder rolling, 2 warriors in a graveyard built for warriors. "How did you find me?" Elena asked. "I did not find you. I have been watching you for 8 months. Ever since Syria." Her jaw tightened. "What do you want?" "To talk. About your father. About what happened to your team. About the fact that you are drinking yourself to death in that apartment and pretending it is not happening." "I am fine." "You are a liar." His voice was not cruel, just factual. The way you would tell someone their shoe was untied. "I have seen men break after losing teammates. Seen them eat their guns. Seen them drive their cars into bridge abutments at 90 miles per hour. You are on that road, Elena. Your father would not want that. My father is dead because someone sold him out. Just like my team died because someone sold them out. So excuse me if I am having trouble giving a damn what anyone wants." Doc watched her for a long moment, rain dripping from his nose, eyes that had seen too much but somehow kept looking anyway. "You are right," he said. "Thomas was betrayed. 15 years ago, someone fed his position to the Taliban. They knew exactly where he would be, exactly when. They set an ambush and your father walked right into it." Elena felt something cold settle in her chest. "You knew this?" "I suspected, but I could not prove it. Thomas was investigating something before he died. Defense contract fraud. Weapons deals that did not add up. Money moving through channels it should not be moving through. He told me he was getting close to something big. 2 weeks later, he was dead." "And you did nothing?" "I tried. For 5 years I tried, but the leak was too well protected. Every time I got close, the trail went cold. People retired. Files disappeared. Witnesses died in accidents that were not accidents." "Then why tell me now?" Doc pulled a tablet from inside his jacket, handed it to her. The screen showed a classified file, signals intelligence, intercepted communications. She scrolled through it and felt her stomach turn. The pattern was unmistakable. Her father's mission in 2009 leaked 48 hours before insertion. Her team's mission in Syria leaked 24 hours before insertion. 2 operations, 15 years apart, same intelligence signature, same source. "Someone has been selling American operators to our enemies for at least 15 years, Doc said. Probably longer. Your father got close to exposing them. They killed him. Your team got close by accident. They killed them too. Elena stared at the data. Numbers and codes that represented lives destroyed, families shattered, brothers dead in foreign dirt because someone decided profit mattered more than honor. Who? Her voice was barely a whisper. I do not know, but I know where we can start looking. She looked up at him, water running down her face. We? Thomas saved my life 4 times. Panama, Somalia, twice in Afghanistan. Every time he put himself between me and death. Never hesitated, never asked for anything back. Doc's voice cracked slightly. I loved him like a brother, like family. And when he died, I promised myself I would find out who betrayed him. I promised I would make them pay. You have been hunting this for 15 years? On and off, between deployments, between missions. Every spare moment. He gestured at the tablet. This is everything I have found. It is not enough to bring charges, not enough to prove anything, but it is enough to know the truth. Which is? That your father died for something. That he was close to exposing a network that has killed dozens of American operators, maybe hundreds over the years, and that network is still active. Thunder crashed directly overhead. The storm was reaching its peak. Elena looked at her father's headstone. Thomas Cross, silent guardian. Some things are worth dying for. He had told her that once. She had been 10 years old, asked him why he kept going back to war, why he kept leaving her and Mom. He had knelt down, looked her in the eye, said that some people needed someone to stand between them and evil. That freedom was not free. That guardians paid in blood and sweat and nightmares so others could sleep in peace. She had not understood then. She understood now. What do you want from me? She asked. Doc took the tablet back, slid it into his jacket. Naval Special Warfare has a mission. High-value target, arms dealer named Viktor Volkov, used to be Soviet Spetsnaz. Now he sells weapons to anyone with money. Currently holding 6 American contractors hostage. Send a team. They tried, twice. Both times the operation was compromised before it even started. Someone leaked the mission details. Volkov was ready. The teams barely escaped. Third time is the charm? Third time we do it different. Small team, off the books, no official channels, no digital footprint. No one knows except the people in the field. Elena shook her head. I am discharged. I cannot just walk onto a base and volunteer for classified missions. Admiral Hayes approved you. Conditional reinstatement, temporary contract, this one mission. If you succeed, you get your career back. If you fail, he shrugged, you were never there. Why me? Because Volkov sent a message 3 days ago, intercepted by NSA. He knows we are coming. He said, and I quote, send your best sniper. I will kill them like I killed Thomas Cross. The words hit like a physical blow. Elena took a step back. The rain suddenly felt colder. The thunder louder. Volkov killed my father? Volkov arranged the ambush, paid for the intelligence, provided the weapons. Your father killed 8 of his best men in Helmand back in 2015. Volkov barely escaped. He has been obsessed with the Cross family ever since. Good, then he can die obsessed. Doc smiled. It was a hard smile, a warrior's smile. There is the Cross bloodline I remember. Thomas would be proud. Thomas is dead. Then let's make sure his death meant something. Elena looked at the headstone one more time. Master Chief Thomas Cross, devoted father, silent guardian, the man who taught her to shoot before she could ride a bike, who showed her how to calculate ballistic trajectories before she learned algebra, who gave her a legacy she had spent her whole life trying to live up to. She was not him, would never be him, but maybe she could finish what he started. When do we leave? She asked. Briefing is in 6 hours. Dam Neck Annex, classified wing. Bring nothing digital, no phones, no smartwatches, nothing that can be tracked or hacked. Who else is on the team? 2 others, people your father trusted with his life, people I trust with mine. Doc turned to leave, paused. Elena, this mission, it is not just about Volkov. It is about finding out who betrayed your father, who betrayed your team, the intelligence Volkov has. If we can capture him alive, we might finally get answers. And if we cannot capture him alive, then we make sure he can never betray another operator again. Doc walked away into the rain, disappeared between the rows of white headstones. Elena stood alone in the storm and felt something she had not felt in 8 months. Purpose. The briefing room at Dam Neck was exactly what Elena expected. Windowless, soundproofed, 3 feet of reinforced concrete between it and anything resembling daylight. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead with the kind of sound that made you remember every bad decision you had ever made. Admiral Richard Hayes stood at the head of the table. 64 years old, Vietnam veteran, 2 tours on river patrol boats in the Mekong Delta. He had known her father, served with him in Panama. She remembered him from the funeral, the way he had looked at the flag-folded coffin like he was seeing his own death rehearsed. 2 other people sat at the table. The first was a man who looked like violence incarnated. Late 40s, built like a middleweight boxer. Scars visible on his hands and neck. Eyes that had seen too many things and decided to keep looking anyway. He wore the subdued insignia of a Marine gunnery sergeant. Scout sniper qualified. Combat action ribbon. Purple heart with 3 clusters. Jack Bennett, Hayes said. Call sign Reaper. 187 confirmed kills over 30 years. Fallujah, Marja, Sangin. Everywhere Marines have fought since 1994. Bennett nodded at Elena, did not smile, did not offer his hand, just assessed her with the cold calculation of a man who measured people in terms of whether they would get him killed. The second person was a woman in her late 30s, red hair pulled back in a tight bun, Army captain's bars, intelligence branch. She had the look of someone who spent more time staring at computer screens than carrying rifles, but there was something hard in her eyes that said she had seen her share of the real world too. Captain Sarah McKenna, Hayes continued, call sign Red, Army Intelligence. 4 tours in Afghanistan, embedded with Northern Alliance fighters, speaks Pashto and Dari, has contacts throughout the tribal regions. Red nodded. I knew your father, briefly. He coordinated with my unit during a joint operation in Kandahar. I was impressed. Elena took her seat. Doc sat beside her. Hayes remained standing. Before we begin, I need to make something clear, the Admiral said. This mission is not official, not sanctioned, not approved by anyone above my pay grade. If you get caught, the United States government will deny you exist. If you die, your families get a flag and a story about training accidents. No one will know what you did. No one will thank you. No one will remember. Sounds familiar, Bennett said. His voice was gravel and whiskey. Hayes pulled up a satellite image on the screen. Afghanistan, Hindu Kush Mountains, a compound that looked like it had been built by Soviets and abandoned by everyone with sense. Viktor Volkov, age 58, former Soviet Spetsnaz, served in Afghanistan during the Soviet occupation, stayed after the withdrawal, built a network selling weapons to anyone with cash. Taliban, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, every terrorist group in the region has bought from him. More images. Volkov's face, hard, Slavic, eyes like chips of ice. A man who had killed many people and lost no sleep over any of them. 3 weeks ago, Volkov's people kidnapped 6 American contractors, engineers working on infrastructure projects in Kabul. 2 women, 4 men, ages 28 to 54, all civilians, all American citizens. Photos of the hostages appeared, faces that looked like they could be your neighbor, your co-worker, your family. Normal people who had no business being in a war zone but had gone anyway because someone needed to rebuild what war destroyed. Volkov is demanding $50 million ransom. He knows we will not pay. This is not about money. This is about sending a message. In 8 days, he will execute all 6 hostages on video and broadcast it to the world. Elena studied the compound layout, Soviet-era construction, reinforced concrete, good sight lines, defensive positions that had been designed by people who understood how wars were fought. The compound is wired like a death trap, Red said. She pulled up thermal overlays. Complete thermal imaging coverage. 300-meter radius, anything warmer than ambient temperature gets flagged. Acoustic sensors that can detect gunfire out to half a kilometer. Triangulate the source within 2 seconds, and the hostages are rigged with remote detonators. Any alarm, any indication of assault. Volkov pushes a button and 6 people die. So conventional assault is suicide, Bennett said. Correct. Airstrike kills the hostages. Ground assault triggers the sensors. Artillery is too imprecise. There is no good option. Hayes zoomed in on a ridge overlooking the compound from the south. Except this, steep approach, nearly vertical in some places. Volkov assumed no one could reach it. The thermal coverage has a dead zone. If you can climb the ridge and establish position here, he marked a spot, you will have direct line of sight to the main courtyard. 195 yards. That is inside thermal detection range, Bennett pointed out. Yes, but if you are completely still, if you are already in position when they do their sweep, the sensors read you as environmental. A rock, a tree, something that was always there. Doc leaned forward. This is a precision shot under impossible conditions. Thermal detection, acoustic sensors, hostages wired to explode. We need a weapon that leaves no signature. Hayes looked at Elena. Your father designed a weapon for exactly this scenario. Silent, cool, subsonic flight, no radar signature, no thermal bloom, no acoustic footprint. Elena felt every eye in the room turn to her. The crossbow, she said quietly. Master Chief Thomas Cross spent 20 years perfecting a combat crossbow system. Compound design, 420 pounds draw weight, effective range out to 250 yards. And the ammunition, Hayes pulled up technical specifications. Explosive bolts, shaped charges, 45 grams RDX equivalent, impact detonation. They punch through level 4 body armor like cardboard. Bennett studied the specs. This is real, not some prototype. Thomas used it operationally 37 times. Panama, Somalia, Iraq, Afghanistan, 13 confirmed kills. Never missed a shot. Never left a trace. Where is this weapon now? All eyes back to Elena. Storage, she said. I have not touched it since my father died. Hayes looked at her hard. Can you use it? My father trained me from age 8. Ballistics, wind reading, drop compensation. I qualified expert marksman on every weapon system the Navy has, but the crossbow, she paused. I have not fired it in combat. That is not what I asked. Can you use it? Elena thought about Syria, about freezing, about 3 men dying because she hesitated, about standing in the rain at her father's grave and feeling like a failure who did not deserve to carry his name. Could she use it? Could she be 1/10 the operator her father had been? Could she make a shot that mattered when everything was on the line? No, she said. The room went silent. Hayes frowned. Excuse me? I cannot use it. Not the way it needs to be used. Not the way my father used it. Elena looked at Doc. But he can teach me. Doc raised an eyebrow. I am 62 years old with a bum knee and arthritis in both hands. You want me to teach you precision shooting? You trained with my father for 20 years. You know the weapon, you know the doctrine, and you know me better than I know myself right now. She held his gaze. You said Thomas saved your life 4 times. Said you owe him. Help me finish what he started. Help me be worthy of the name Cross. Doc was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked at Hayes. How long until insertion? 4 weeks, training, planning, coordination with Northern Alliance contacts for extraction. Then we have 4 weeks to turn her into her father. I will never be my father. No, but maybe you can be you. Maybe that is enough. Bennett spoke up. With all due respect, this sounds insane. We are going to infiltrate a hardened compound in hostile territory. Take a precision shot with the medieval weapon. Extract 6 hostages through 300 meters of sensor coverage. And do it all without firing a shot or triggering an alarm. He looked at Hayes. Sir, this is the dumbest thing I have ever heard. And yet you volunteered. I volunteered because Doc pulled me out of Fallujah in 2004. I was 19 years old. Took shrapnel from an IED. Chest, neck, face. Should have died. Doc carried me 2 clicks to an aid station. Operated on me in the back of a Humvee doing 60 miles per hour through Ambush Alley. I owe him my life. Bennett turned to Doc. If you are going, I am going. Even if it is the dumbest mission in history. Red nodded. My father died in the Pentagon on September 11th. I was 14. He was an Army colonel. Good man. I have spent every day since trying to make his sacrifice mean something. If this mission can prevent another attack, another 9/11, I am in. Hayes looked around the table. Then we are agreed. 4 weeks training, insertion via Night Stalkers 45 kilometers from target, 4-day trek through the Hindu Kush, establish position, neutralize Volkov, extract hostages. Questions? Elena raised her hand. Sir, you said this is not just about Volkov, that he has intelligence. What intelligence? Hayes pulled up another file, encrypted communications, financial transfers, names and dates that made Elena's skin crawl. Volkov has been buying and selling information from someone inside the American intelligence apparatus, someone with access to operational planning, mission details, insertion coordinates. This person has been active for at least 15 years. possibly longer. The leak, Doc said. Yes, we believe Volkov can give us the identity of the person who betrayed your father, who betrayed your team in Syria, who has gotten God knows how many operators killed over the years. Hayes locked eyes with Elena. This mission has two objectives. Primary is hostage rescue. Secondary is Volkov. We need him alive if possible, dead if necessary, but we need whatever intelligence he has. Elena felt something cold and hard settle in her chest. Not rage, not hatred, just absolute certainty. Understood, sir. Good. Doc will handle training. Red coordinates with Northern Alliance contacts for extraction routes. Bennett provides overwatch and tactical support. I will run interference with the bureaucracy. Hayes closed the files. You leave in 4 weeks. Use the time well. This mission goes wrong, you die in a country that hates you for reasons no one will ever know. The briefing ended. Elena followed Doc out of the building into Gray, Virginia afternoon. Rain had stopped, but clouds still hung low and threatening. 4 weeks, Doc said, to teach you everything your father spent 30 years perfecting. Can it be done? No, but we are going to do it anyway. He headed toward a black SUV parked in the corner of the lot. Get in. We start now. Now do I not get to go home? Pack. Say goodbye. Doc looked at her over the roof of the vehicle. To who? You have been living alone for 8 months, drinking, not sleeping, not talking to anyone. You want to waste time pretending you have a life to put on hold, or do you want to learn how to save 6 people and maybe find out who killed your father? Elena got in the vehicle. They drove for an hour out of Virginia Beach, through rural countryside that looked like time forgot it existed. Finally, Doc turned onto a dirt road that led to a property surrounded by chain link fence and razor wire. A sign read private property, no trespassing, violators will be shot, survivors will be shot again. Comforting, Elena said. This is where your father and I trained, 15 acres, range out to 400 yards, climate-controlled workshop, everything we need. He punched a code into the gate. It swung open with a rusty groan. They drove another half-mile to a farmhouse that had seen better decades. Barn beside it looked like a strong wind would knock it over. But when Doc led her inside the barn, Elena understood. The exterior was camouflage. The interior was a tactical training facility that would make most military bases jealous. Shooting lanes with adjustable distances, ballistic gel dummies wearing body armor, wind machines, temperature controls, thermal imaging equipment, night vision, everything. And mounted on the wall in a locked glass case was the crossbow. Elena stopped breathing. It looked exactly like she remembered. Compound design, black carbon fiber, string that could probably tow a car, scope mounted on the rail, and carved into the stock were 13 notches, 13 kills, her father's score. Thomas made this in '92, Doc said quietly. He unlocked the case, lifted the weapon down with reverence. Took him 2 years, tested 50 different designs. This is the one that worked. He handed it to Elena. She took it with trembling hands. It was heavier than she remembered. Balanced, solid, real in a way few things felt real anymore. He taught you the basics before he died, Doc continued. Stance, breathing, trigger control. But basics are not enough, not for this. You need to be able to make a 200-yard shot in darkness, in wind, in rain, under fire, with people depending on you. He paused. Can you handle that pressure? Elena thought about Syria, about freezing, about Wilson dying because she hesitated. I do not know. Good. Honesty is the first step. Now let's see how bad you are. He set up a target at 50 yards, standard silhouette, human-sized, loaded a training bolt into the crossbow. Not explosive, just broadhead tip. Show me what you remember. Elena raised the crossbow, settled it against her shoulder, looked through the scope, found the target. Her father's voice echoed in memory. Between the heartbeats. That is where the truth lives. Find the space between beats and everything else disappears. She breathed in. 4 counts, held, exhaled, 8 counts, held. Found the rhythm, found the space. Pulled the trigger. The bolt flew. Impacted the target. 3 inches left of center mass. A hit but not a kill shot. Not reliable. Doc walked down range, examined the target, came back. Your breathing is good. Your stance is acceptable. But you are thinking too much. Calculating. Trying to be perfect. He took the crossbow. Thomas never calculated. He felt. wind, distance, temperature. He absorbed it all and let his body make the adjustments. Watch. He loaded another bolt, raised the crossbow, did not seem to aim, just looked at the target with an expression that was almost bored. Fired. The bolt hit dead center. Perfect kill shot. How? Elena asked. Practice. 10,000 shots? 20,000. I stopped counting. But more than that, your father taught me to stop thinking, to trust the weapon, to trust myself. You are carrying Syria in your head, carrying guilt, carrying fear. All that noise is making you miss. How do I stop? You do not stop it, you acknowledge it. Then you set it aside between the heartbeats. Remember? They trained for 6 hours straight, 50 yards, 100, 150, 200. Elena's arms ached, her back screamed, her eyes burned from staring through the scope. But slowly, gradually, the shots started landing closer to center. Not perfect, not yet, but better. When they finally stopped, it was dark. Doc made coffee in the farmhouse, strong enough to strip paint. They sat at a kitchen table that looked like it survived World War II. 4 weeks is not enough time, Elena said. No, but it is what we have. Your father could make a 300-yard shot in the dark in a rainstorm with people shooting at him. You will never be that good, but you do not need to be. You just need to be good enough. Good enough to save 6 people. Good enough to not get everyone killed. She sipped the coffee. It tasted like battery acid. Doc, why are you really doing this? Is it just because my father saved your life? He was quiet for a long time, stared into his coffee like it held answers. When he spoke, his voice was rough. Vietnam, 1972, I was 19. Medic attached to a Marine rifle company. We got hit in a valley. Ambush, heavy fire. My best friend took a round through the neck. I tried to save him. Could not stop the bleeding. He died in my arms asking for his mother. Doc looked up. I have carried that moment for 50 years. Every man I have saved since. Every life I have pulled back from the edge. It is all trying to make up for the one I could not save. You cannot save everyone. No, but I can try. Thomas understood that. He once told me that the job is not to win. The job is to stand in the gap, to be the person between evil and innocent people, to pay the price so others do not have to. Doc set down his coffee. Your father died paying that price. I owe him. But more than that, I owe the idea of him. The belief that some people are worth saving, that some things are worth fighting for even when you cannot win. Elena looked at the crossbow lying on the table. 13 notches. 13 lives ended so others could live. What if I am not strong enough? Then we make you strong enough, one shot at a time. They trained every day for 4 weeks. Dawn to midnight, sometimes longer. Doc was relentless, demanding. He pushed her past exhaustion into someplace beyond pain, where only the weapon and the target existed. Week 1 was fundamentals. Breathing, trigger control, learning to reload in under 2 seconds. The crossbow had to be cocked manually after every shot. 420 pounds of draw weight. It took all her strength. Doc made her do it 500 times a day until her arms felt like rubber and her hands bled through her gloves. Week 2 was distance shooting, 50 yards to 200 yards. Learning to read wind, to judge drop, to compensate for angle. Her father had never used rangefinders or ballistic computers. He calculated everything in his head. Doc made Elena do the same. Technology fails, he said. Batteries die, computers glitch, but physics is forever. Learn the math, make it instinct. Week 3 was the explosive bolts. Doc manufactured 6. Shaped charges with RDX equivalent. Impact detonators. He showed her how they worked, how to load them without triggering premature detonation, how to verify the charge was armed before firing. They tested them on ballistic gel dummies wearing level 4 body armor. The results were devastating. The bolt punched through the ceramic plates like paper. The shaped charge detonated inside the chest cavity. The wound channel was catastrophic. 1 shot, 1 kill, Doc said, but only if you place it correctly. Missed by 6 inches and you just wound him. That is not good enough. What if the bolt fails? You said 70% reliability. Then you adapt. Switch to backup weapon. Call for support. Do not stand there and die because your primary failed. Week 4 was the hardest. Doc created scenarios. Pressure, stress. He would fire blanks near her while she tried to shoot. Play recordings of screaming. smoke machines, strobe lights, anything to simulate the chaos of actual combat. Syria happened because you froze, he said. Not cruel, just factual. You saw the unexpected and your brain locked up. We are going to break that habit. He was right. The first few scenarios she froze every time, but gradually she learned to function through the chaos, to narrow her focus, to find that space between heartbeats where the noise disappeared and only the mission existed. By the end of week 4, Elena could hit a man-sized target at 200 yards. Reliably, repeatedly, under stress. She could reload in 1.4 seconds. She could calculate wind drift and bullet drop in her head faster than most people use calculators. She was not her father, would never be her father. But maybe she was good enough. The night before deployment, Doc gave her something. A leather journal, worn, stained, pages yellow with age. Your father kept detailed notes on every operation, calculations, conditions, lessons learned. He made me promise that if anything happened to him, I would give this to you when you were ready. Elena opened the journal, her father's handwriting, precise, methodical. She turned to a random page. Panama, 1992. 6 targets eliminated in 43 seconds. No gunfire, no muzzle flash, no warning. The crossbow is not obsolete. It has evolved beyond obsolete into invisible. Modern warfare teaches enemies to fear bullets, but they have forgotten to fear silence. She turned more pages. Somalia, Iraq, Afghanistan. Decades of operations, decades of kills. And on the last page written in her father's hand was a message dated 2 days before he died. Elena, if you are reading this, I did not make it home. I am sorry. I wanted to see you grow up. Wanted to walk you down the aisle someday. Wanted to meet my grandchildren. But some things are worth dying for. Some people need someone to stand between them and evil. That is what guardians do. We pay the price so others can sleep in peace. You have my blood, my training, my weapon. But more than that, you have my belief that some things matter more than survival. Honor, duty, sacrifice. Between the heartbeats is where you will find the truth of who you are. Trust that truth. It will never fail you. I love you. I am proud of you. And I will be watching from wherever warriors go when they fall. Make me proud. Dad. Elena closed the journal. Her hands were shaking. Her vision blurred. Doc put a hand on her shoulder. He knew, Doc said quietly. 2 days before the mission, he knew something was wrong. Told me if he did not come back to give you that journal, to tell you he loved you, to make sure you understood why he kept going back. Did he know he was being betrayed? He suspected, but he went anyway, because 11 men needed extraction and Thomas Cross never left brothers behind. Elena looked at the crossbow, at the journal, at Doc's weathered face. I'm not doing this for the hostages, she said, or Volkov, or the mission. I know. I am doing this because someone needs to pay for Syria, for my father, for every operator that bastard leak got killed. That is acceptable motivation. Is it, or is it just revenge? Doc smiled. Hard smile, warrior smile. Revenge is just justice without a courtroom. Sometimes that is all we get. Your father understood that. So do I. So will Volkov. They sat in silence for a moment, then Doc stood. C-17 leaves Langley at 0400. Wheels up in 6 hours. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we start the real work. Elena did not sleep. She sat in the barn with her father's crossbow, ran her fingers over the 13 notches carved in the stock. Wondered if she would add a 14th. Wondered if she would survive to count. Between the heartbeats. That is where warriors live. She closed her eyes, found her breath, found the rhythm. 4 counts in, 8 counts out. Hold. Between the beats, the world disappeared. Syria disappeared. The guilt disappeared. The fear disappeared. Only the mission existed. Only the shot existed. She opened her eyes, loaded a training bolt, raised the crossbow to her shoulder, aimed at a target 200 yards away, barely visible in the darkness. Found the space between heartbeats. Fired. The bolt flew true, impacted center mass. Perfect kill shot. Elena smiled. First real smile in 8 months. Her father would be proud. The C-17 Globemaster climbed through thick clouds over the Atlantic. Inside the cargo bay, Elena sat across from Doc. Bennett was cleaning his rifle for the 10th time. Red had laptops open running final intelligence checks. Doc had his eyes closed. Not asleep, just resting. Conserving energy the way old soldiers learned to do. Every moment of rest was borrowed time against the chaos coming. Elena tried to do the same, but her mind would not stop. 4 weeks of training, 4 weeks of pain and sweat, and slowly becoming something closer to her father's daughter. But was it enough? Could she make the shot when it mattered? Could she save 6 people she had never met? Could she avoid freezing again? Doc's eyes opened, like he sensed her thoughts. You are thinking too much again. How do you know? Because I can hear it. Your breathing changed. You are calculating odds, measuring success rates, trying to predict outcomes. He leaned forward. Stop. You cannot control the mission. You can only control yourself. Everything else is chaos and adaptation. Easy to say, hard to do. That is why we train. That is why we drill until our hands bleed and our minds break. So that when chaos comes, we have something to fall back on. Muscle memory, instinct, training. Bennett spoke without looking up from his rifle. First combat is always hell. You never know how you will react until bullets start flying. Some people freeze. Some people fight. Some people run. You already know which one you are. Do I? Syria. You froze, got people killed. That eats at you. Good. Means you have a conscience. But here is the thing. He finally looked up, eyes like flint. Freezing once does not make you a coward. It makes you human. What matters is what you do the second time, third time. You keep freezing, you are done. But you learn, you adapt. You become someone who does not freeze. That is the difference between dead operators and legends. My father never froze. Your father froze his first firefight, Doc said. Elena looked at him in shock. Panama, 1992. We hit a compound at night. Thomas was point man, opened a door and found 12 hostiles instead of 3. He froze 2 full seconds. Could have gotten us all killed. What happened? I shot past him, took down the first 3 targets. That broke his paralysis. He moved. By the time the smoke cleared, Thomas had killed 8 men and saved 5 Americans. Nobody remembered the freeze. They remembered the kills. Did he talk about it? Once, years later, over too many beers. Said the fear never goes away. You just learn to act despite it. Said courage is not the absence of fear. It is doing what needs to be done while terrified. Doc smiled. Between the heartbeats. Remember? In that space, fear does not exist. Only the mission exists. Elena nodded. Tried to let the words sink in. Tried to believe them. Red closed her laptops. We have a problem. Everyone turned to her. Just got updated intelligence from Northern Alliance contacts. The compound. It is not the one in the briefing. What? Bennett stood. Are you serious? Volkov moved the hostages 3 days ago. New location. 60 kilometers deeper into Pakistan. Harder terrain, more hostiles. And the thermal sensor coverage has tripled. Doc swore. Does Hayes know? I just sent encrypted update. His response was adapt and overcome. Helpful? Red pulled up new satellite imagery. The new compound looked worse than the first. More fortified. More isolated. And the approach ridge was not just steep, it was nearly vertical. 400-foot climb, Red said. Loose rock, no good anchor points. And we have to do it carrying full gear. Crossbow, ammunition, medical supplies, radio equipment, everything. Elena studied the image. The climb looked impossible, the kind of thing that killed even experienced climbers. Can it be done, she asked. Bennett examined the terrain. With proper equipment, time to prep, ideal conditions. Maybe, but we have 4 days to get there, through hostile territory, while carrying 75 pounds of gear each. He looked at Elena. You are, what, 5'3", 130 soaking wet? This climb will break you. Then I better not break, Doc smiled. There is the Cross stubbornness I remember. Thomas once climbed a 80-foot cliff face with a broken arm just to prove it could be done. Drove your mother crazy. Did he make it? Top to bottom in 40 minutes. Then he passed out from pain. But he made it. Red pulled up more into Varipin. One more thing. Volkov knows we are coming, not specifics, but he has been preparing, increased patrols, more weapons. He even sent another message to Naval Special Warfare yesterday. What did it say? Red played the audio. Volkov's voice, thick accent, cold as winter in Siberia. Tell Thomas Cross, daughter, I am waiting. Tell her I will kill her slowly. Tell her I will make her beg like her father begged before I shot him in the head. Tell her to come. I have a noose with her name on it. The cargo bay went silent except for engine noise. Elena felt something cold and sharp settle in her chest. Not fear, not anger, just clarity, absolute certainty about what came next. Good, she said quietly. Let him wait. Let him get comfortable. Let him think he knows what is coming. And what is coming? Bennett asked. Elena looked at the crossbow case beside her. 13 notches, soon to be 14. Silence, death, and the end of a legend who forgot that some debts get paid in blood. Doc reached across the aisle, put his hand on her shoulder. Your father would say the same thing, word for word. You ready for this? Elena thought about Syria, about freezing, about Wilson dying, about standing in the rain at her father's grave feeling worthless and broken and lost. She was not that person anymore. 4 weeks of training had not made her Thomas Cross, but it had made her something else, something harder, something ready. Between the heartbeats, she said, that is where I live now. Then let's go make your father proud. The C-17 flew east through the night, toward mountains that had broken armies, toward a compound where 6 Americans waited to die, toward a man who had killed legends and wanted to kill another. Elena Cross closed her eyes, found her breath, found the rhythm. 4 counts in, 8 counts out. Hold. Between the beats, she saw her father, saw him kneeling in front of her when she was 8 years old, teaching her to shoot, teaching her to breathe, teaching her that some things were worth fighting for even when you could not win. She saw Wilson throwing himself in front of her in Syria, saw him die believing she was worth saving. She saw Doc carrying her father's legacy like a burden he could never put down. Between the beats, she understood. This was not about revenge, not about redemption, not even about the hostages though they mattered. This was about proving that some warriors never really die. They just pass the weapon to the next generation. They just teach the next guardian how to stand in the gap, how to pay the price, how to find the space between heartbeats where fear disappears and only duty remains. Thomas Cross had died doing that. Now his daughter would finish what he started. The aircraft banked hard, beginning descent. They were 3 hours from insertion, 3 hours from the beginning of something that would end with either salvation or silence. Elena opened her eyes, looked at her team, at Doc, who carried 40 years of war in his bones, at Bennett, who had killed more men than most people would ever meet, at Red, who had lost her father on the worst day in American history and spent every day since trying to make it mean something. Warriors, all of them, broken and scarred and refusing to quit. Her people, her family. Hey, Doc, she said quietly. Yeah? Thank you for not giving up on me, for teaching me, for believing I could be more than I was. Doc smiled, tired smile, old warrior smile. Thank me when we get home. Thank me when 6 Americans walk off a plane into their family's arms. Thank me when we find out who betrayed your father and make them pay. He paused. But mostly thank your old man, because everything I taught you, everything you learned, that was him, always him. I just reminded you what you already knew. Between the heartbeats, where fathers become legends, where daughters become warriors, where the mission is all that matters. Elena stood, walked to the window, looked out at clouds rushing past. Somewhere below was Afghanistan, Pakistan, mountains older than nations, valleys where empires had died, and a compound where Viktor Volkov waited. She touched the window. Cold glass, cold world. I'm coming, she whispered, and I am bringing my father with me. The aircraft descended into darkness, into war, into the space between heartbeats where guardians are born and legends never die. To be continued. The Hindu Kush mountains rose from the earth like the broken teeth of some ancient god, 9,400 feet above sea level. Air thin enough to make your lungs burn, cold enough at night to freeze water in your canteen. Beautiful in the way that things designed to kill you are always beautiful. Elena Cross stood at the insertion point and looked at 4 days of hell stretching ahead. The Night Stalker helicopter was already gone, disappeared into darkness like it had never existed. She could still hear the rotors fading into distance, but that was just memory playing tricks. They were alone now, 45 kilometers from target, no support, no backup, no rescue if things went wrong. Just 4 operators and a medieval weapon against a compound full of men who killed for a living. Doc checked his GPS one final time before powering it down. Electronics stayed off from here forward. Nothing digital, nothing that could be tracked or intercepted or hacked. They were ghosts now. Invisible, silent, The way special operations were supposed to be before satellites and drones made everyone think war could be fought from air-conditioned rooms 10,000 miles away. 4 days, Doc said. His voice was quiet, almost conversational, like they were planning a camping trip instead of an infiltration that could trigger an international incident. 12 to 15 clicks per day. Altitude will slow us down. Terrain is rough. Patrols are random but predictable once you know the patterns. Bennett had his rifle slung and was studying the route on a paper map. Actual paper. Old school. The kind of thing that did not run out of batteries or get compromised by signal intercepts. First day is easy, he said. Relatively. Open ground. Good sight lines. We should make contact with Red's people by nightfall. Northern Alliance? Elena asked. Former Northern Alliance. Now they are just Afghans who remember we helped them fight the Taliban and figure they owe us. Red has history with them. Saved a village elder's grandson during a firefight in Kandahar. Blood debt in their culture. They will get us to the border. Red was already moving. Pack on her back. Rifle at low ready. She moved like someone who had spent years in these mountains. Who understood that speed killed you and patience kept you alive? Elena followed. Then Bennett. Doc brought up the rear. Old habit. Medics always traveled last so they could reach anyone who got hit. The first day was exactly what Bennett promised, relatively easy. The kind of easy that meant your feet hurt and your back ached and you questioned every life choice that brought you to a mountain range that had broken armies since Alexander the Great. They covered 14 clicks by sunset, made camp in a wadi that offered concealment from air and ground. No fire, no light. They ate cold rations that tasted like cardboard mixed with sadness and washed it down with water that tasted like iodine tablets. Elena sat with her back against rock and felt every muscle in her body screaming. The crossbow case was strapped to her pack. 12 pounds of weapon that felt like 50 after 14 kilometers. She closed her eyes and tried not to think about how much worse tomorrow would be. Doc settled beside her. He moved like a man twice his age, joints creaking. Breath labored, but his eyes were sharp, alert, still scanning for threats even in the relative safety of their hide position. How are you holding up? He asked. Fine. Liar. Elena smiled despite herself. My feet hurt. My shoulders feel like someone beat them with hammers, and I am carrying a weapon that belongs in a museum. Your father carried that weapon through worse terrain than this. Panama, triple canopy jungle, humidity so thick you could drown breathing. He did 20-click movements with full combat load and never complained. My father was apparently superhuman. No, he was just stubborn, refused to admit when he was hurting because he thought it would make him look weak. Probably took years off his life. Doc pulled out his own rations, started eating mechanically, fuel for the machine. You do not have to be him. You just have to finish the mission. And if I cannot, then we adapt. But I do not think you will fail. You have been steady so far. No complaints, no hesitation. That is half the battle. Bennett joined them. His face was unreadable in the darkness, but Elena could feel him studying her, measuring, calculating whether she would be an asset or a liability when bullets started flying. First day is always the easiest, he said. Adrenaline carries you. Tomorrow is harder. Day 3 is worse. Day 4, you are running on fumes and willpower. That is when people break. When mistakes happen. Encouraging. I am not here to encourage. I am here to make sure we all get home. He paused. Your father was one of the best operators I ever heard about. Never met him, but everyone who served with him said the same thing. Calm under fire. Made impossible shots look easy. Never left a man behind. I know. But here is what they also said. He was human, made mistakes, got scared, bled when he got shot. The legend makes him sound invincible, but the man was just a good soldier who trained harder than everyone else and refused to quit when things got bad. Elena looked at Bennett, really looked at him. Marine Scout sniper, 30 years of war, 187 confirmed kills. The kind of man who had seen everything combat had to offer and decided to keep showing up anyway. Why are you telling me this? She asked. Because you are trying to be the legend, but legends do not exist. Only people exist, and people can do extraordinary things when they stop trying to be perfect and just focus on the mission. He stood. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we climb. Elena tried to sleep, could not. Her mind kept running through scenarios. The approach, the hide position, The shot, 200 yards with a weapon that took almost 2 seconds to reload. If she missed, if the bolt failed to detonate, if Volkov moved at the wrong moment, 6 hostages died, her team died, and the leak that killed her father stayed buried forever. No pressure. She must have dozed eventually because Doc was shaking her shoulder and the sky was showing the first gray hints of dawn. They ate, packed, moved out before the sun cleared the ridgeline. Day 2 was worse. The terrain turned vertical, steep climbs, loose scree that slid away under your boots, narrow paths with drops that would kill you if you slipped. Elena's legs burned. Her lungs felt like they were full of broken glass. The altitude was worse than she remembered from training. Thinner, meaner. They covered 10 clicks. Should have done 12, but the terrain ate time like a hungry animal. Made camp in another wadi. This one offered a trickle of fresh water that they filtered and refilled their canteens. Small blessing in a day of suffering. Red made contact with her Northern Alliance friends that night. 3 men appeared from the darkness like ghosts, bearded, armed with AK-47s that looked older than Elena. But their eyes were sharp and they moved with the confidence of men who had survived decades of war in mountains that killed foreigners for sport. The eldest spoke to Red in rapid Pashto. She translated. He says the new compound is heavily guarded. Volkov increased patrols 3 days ago, almost like he knew we were coming. Does he know specifics? Doc asked. More conversation. Red's face darkened. He says Volkov has been bragging, says he has a trap set for American operators, says he will mount their heads on pikes outside his compound. Charming fellow. There is more. Volkov has been meeting with other people, cell leaders, terrorist commanders, moving money and weapons. The elder thinks something big is being planned, but he does not know what. Elena felt cold certainty settle in her gut. Operation Nightfall. What? Bennett looked at her. Just a feeling. Volkov is not just an arms dealer. He is a facilitator. And if he is meeting with multiple terrorist leaders, if he is moving serious resources, he is coordinating something. Doc nodded slowly. Makes sense. Arms dealers sell weapons. But coordination, planning, that takes someone with intelligence background, someone who understands operational security. Spetsnaz background, Red said. Volkov was Soviet Special Forces. He knows how operations work, how to compartmentalize, how to keep secrets. The Northern Alliance elder spoke again. Red translated. He says they will guide us to the border, but no further. Pakistani territory is too dangerous even for them. After that, we are on our own. Understood. Thank them for their help. The elder nodded, said something that sounded like a blessing. Then he and his men disappeared back into the darkness as silently as they had arrived. Day 3 was hell. Pure, unfiltered hell. The climb that should have been hard became nearly impossible. 400 vertical feet up, a rock face that was more cliff than hill. Loose rock. No good handholds. And they had to do it carrying full combat loads in air so thin, every breath felt like drowning. Elena went first. Her small frame was an advantage here. She could fit through gaps the others could not, could distribute weight in ways that did not cause rock slides. But it was slow, agonizing, every movement calculated, every handhold tested. Fall here and you fell 400 feet onto rocks that would not even leave enough of you to bury. 6 hours. That is how long it took to climb 400 feet. When Elena finally pulled herself over the top, her hands were bleeding through her gloves. Her arms shook so badly she could barely unclip from the rope. Doc came up next. His face was gray, breath coming in labored gasps. The climb had nearly broken him, but he had refused to quit, refused to be the weak link. Bennett came up third, moved like a machine, steady, controlled. But even he looked exhausted when he reached the summit. Red was last. She looked the least winded of all of them, which made sense given she had spent 4 tours in these mountains. They collapsed in the thermal dead zone, a small depression in the ridge that the sensor coverage could not reach because of the angle. This was home for the next 36 hours, a hole in the ground on a ridge that overlooked a compound where 6 Americans waited to die. Doc broke out medical supplies, treated Elena's hands, wrapped them in gauze that would not interfere with shooting. Bennett and Red established the hide position, ghillie netting, camouflage. Every piece of equipment positioned exactly. When they were done, the position was invisible. Just another rock formation in a landscape full of rock formations. Elena set up her shooting position. The crossbow lay on a sandbag Bennett had carried in his pack. She ranged the courtyard below, 195 yards, inside thermal range, inside acoustic sensor range, inside the kill zone where one wrong move would alert 32 hostiles and get everyone killed. She verified the scope 0, adjusted for the slight difference in altitude and temperature from her training environment, calculated wind speed 7 miles per hour from the west. Steady, that was good. Steady wind you could compensate for. Gusting wind was a nightmare. Then they waited. 36 hours of waiting. Absolute stillness. No fires, no lights, minimal movement. They took turns on watch, sleeping in 2-hour shifts, eating cold rations, drinking water, pissing into bottles because leaving the position meant risking detection. Hour 12 of patrol passed within 40 feet of their location. Pakistani military, 6 men with rifles and radios. They walked right past the hide position and never even glanced in the right direction. The camouflage worked. They were invisible. Just rocks and shadows in a landscape full of rocks and shadows. Hour 30, a thermal sweep passed over their position. Elena held her breath, completely still. The system read her as environmental, a rock, a tree, something that had always been there. The sweep moved on. No alarm, no alert. Hour 35, Doc whispered to her. This is what your father did in Somalia. 52 hours in a hide position. No movement, no food, minimal water, just patience and discipline. How did he stand it? He told me he went somewhere else in his mind. Found a quiet place where time did not matter. Where discomfort was just noise he could ignore. Between the heartbeats, remember? Elena closed her eyes, found her breath, found the rhythm. 4 counts in, 8 counts out. Hold. And in that space, the discomfort faded. The cold, the hunger, the cramping muscles, all of it became distant, unimportant. Only the mission mattered. Only the shot mattered. Hour 36, 2,200 hours. The door to the main compound building opened. Viktor Volkov stepped into the courtyard. Through her night vision scope, Elena saw him clearly for the first time. 6'1", solidly built, moving with the controlled aggression of a man who had spent decades in combat. 4 bodyguards flanked him, all wearing body armor, all carrying weapons, all moving with professional precision. Volkov was conducting his nightly inspection. Paranoid routine. He did not trust anyone else to check security properly. Walked a predictable route. Took 15 minutes. And during those 15 minutes, he was exposed. Target acquired, Elena whispered into her radio. Range 195 yards. Wind 7 miles per hour west. 4 hostiles in formation. Doc's voice came back, calm, steady. You have the shot. Take your time, breathe, find the space. Bennett, I have overwatch. Clear shot on 3 of 4 bodyguards if it goes loud. Red, breach team is ready on your signal, waiting for chaos. Elena loaded the first explosive bolt. The shaped charge felt heavier than it should. 45 grams of RDX that would punch through body armor and detonate inside the target's chest cavity. 1 shot, 1 kill. If it worked, if she placed it correctly, if the bolt did not fail. 70% reliability, Doc had said. 30% chance of catastrophic failure. She pushed the thought away. Between the heartbeats, doubt did not exist. Only the mission existed. Volkov moved across to the courtyard. Elena tracked him through the scope, calculated his path, his speed, where he would be when the bolt arrived. Lead time 1.85 seconds. She settled the crosshair on empty air 18 feet ahead of where he was walking. Her heart rate was 58 beats per minute, high for a precision shot but acceptable given the circumstances. Her breathing was controlled. 4 counts in, 8 counts out, hold at half exhale. Then Volkov stopped. He stood in the center of the courtyard and looked around. His head turned slowly, scanning the perimeter. His eyes moved across the ridgeline, across Elena's position. Something had spooked him, some instinct, some sixth sense that had kept him alive through 40 years of war. He reached for his radio. 3 seconds until he keyed it and called an alert. 3 seconds until the mission collapsed. Elena made the decision in a heartbeat. She rose slightly from the hide position, just enough to clear the ghillie netting, just enough for a clean shot. And in the moment she moved, Volkov saw her, even at 195 yards, even in twilight, even with camouflage. He saw the silhouette, saw the distinctive shape of the crossbow. Recognition flooded his face. His eyes went wide, his mouth opened, "Cross!" he screamed. "It is a Cross! The daughter! Do not breathe! Scatter now!" The bodyguards started to move, started to scatter, but they were already too late. Elena's world narrowed to the crosshair, to the target, to the space between heartbeats. She exhaled to half capacity, paused. The crosshair settled on empty space where Volkov would be in 1.85 seconds. Her finger applied 2.2 pounds of pressure to the trigger. The release was smooth, perfect, inevitable. The bolt left the rail at 410 feet per second. Volkov was running, diving for cover, screaming orders. The bolt flew in absolute silence, arcing slightly to compensate for distance and angle. 1.85 seconds of flight time. Volkov was mid-stride when it hit him, but not center mass. The bolt impacted his left shoulder. High, off target. Not the kill shot she had trained for. Not the perfect placement her father would have made. The shaped charge detonated, 45 grams of RDX exploding with directional force. The exit wound was massive, his entire shoulder joint just gone, shredded, destroyed. Volkov pitched forward, screaming, not dead, still moving, still dangerous. Behind him, the four bodyguards froze in shock and confusion. No gunshot, no muzzle flash. Their boss just exploded. What the hell was that? Elena was already reloading. 1.4 seconds. Smooth. Mechanical. Practiced 10,000 times. The second bolt seated with a click. She acquired the first bodyguard. 200 yards. Standing still. Scanning the wrong direction. Looking for a muzzle flash that would never come. She led the shot slightly. Breathed. Released. Flight time 1.9 seconds. The bolt hit center mass. The explosion killed him instantly. The remaining three bodyguards screamed and scattered, and in the compound below, alarms started to wail. The mission had just gone loud. The compound erupted into chaos. Floodlights blazed to life, turning night into harsh white day. Guards poured from buildings like ants from a kicked hill. 30 men mobilizing in seconds. Weapons raised, eyes scanning for threats they could not identify. "Compromised!" Bennett's voice cracked through the radio. "Thermal just lit you up like a Christmas tree." He was right. The moment Elena had risen to take the first shot, her heat signature had become visible. The compound sensor system had needed time to process the data, but now red lights were flashing on security monitors. Floodlights swiveled toward the ridge. Doc's voice. "Second shot. Now, keep them confused." Elena's hands moved with mechanical precision. Reload, 1.4 seconds. The third bolt seated. Through her scope, the second bodyguard was sprinting toward an armored vehicle, serpentining, making himself a difficult target. 215 yards and moving fast. The kind of shot that separated competent snipers from exceptional ones. She calculated in fractions of seconds. Movement speed 9 feet per second. Bolt flight time at this range 2.1 seconds. Lead distance 18 feet, compensating for his evasive pattern, predicting where instinct would take him. The crosshair settled on empty air. She exhaled, paused, released. The bolt flew silent as prayer. The bodyguard broke left exactly as she predicted. The bolt met him mid-stride, impacting his hip and lower abdomen. The explosion severed both legs at the femur. He went down screaming. The screaming stopped 3 seconds later. Reload. The fourth bolt. Her hands were steady despite the adrenaline, despite the chaos below, despite the knowledge that any second now someone would figure out where the fire was coming from. The third bodyguard had made it to a low concrete wall, only his head and shoulders visible. 180 yards. A precision shot under any circumstances, with a crossbow nearly impossible. Nearly. Elena aimed for the head. No body armor there. No second chances. The margin of error was measured in inches. She controlled her breathing. The world narrowed until nothing existed except the crosshair and the target in the space between her heartbeats. Her father's voice echoed in memory. Between the beats, fear does not exist. Only the shot exists. Release. Flight time 1.7 seconds. The bolt took the bodyguard in the temple. The explosion obliterated his skull. His body dropped behind the wall like a puppet with cut strings. Reload. Fifth bolt. The final bodyguard had reached the armored SUV, fumbling for the door handle, hacking his radio. If he got that transmission out, if he coordinated a response, the entire mission collapsed. 225 yards, maximum effective range. The target was moving. stressed, unpredictable. Wind had shifted, now 8 miles per hour from the northwest. Temperature had dropped 3 degrees. Every variable mattered. Elena made the calculations faster than conscious thought, adjusted for distance, wind, angle, the target's movement, led him by 22 feet, found the space between heartbeats. Released. The bolt arced high across the compound. 2.2 seconds of flight. The bodyguard's hand touched the vehicle door. His mouth opened to speak into the radio. The bolt hit him between the shoulder blades, punched through his spine. The shaped charge detonated. He collapsed against the vehicle and slid down, leaving a dark smear on the armored door. The radio clattered to the ground unused. Total elapsed time from first shot to fifth, 19 seconds. 5 targets engaged. But Volkov was still alive, wounded but alive. And now the compound was fully alert. Guards were clustering around the eastern building where the hostages were held. 8 men forming a protective cordon. In the chaos, they were moving the prisoners, using them as human shields against an attack they still did not understand. Red's voice. SIGINT intercept. They are evacuating hostages to secondary position. If they get them inside that bunker, we will never extract them. Doc. Breaching now. We need to hit them while they are confused. From the western approach, Doc Red and 15 Northern Alliance fighters launched their assault. Gunfire erupted. AK-47s, M4s. The distinctive crack of Red's HK-416. Flashbangs detonated with thundercrack reports. The guards split their attention. Half turned toward the assault team, half continued moving hostages. Elena descended the ridge 50 feet, repositioning closer to the action. New range 140 yards. 7 explosive bolts gone. 5 remaining in her quiver. Through her scope, she identified the priority target. A guard with an RPG-7 on his shoulder, aiming toward Doc's position. If that rocket launched, if it hit anywhere near the breach team, the explosion would kill half of them. She loaded the 6th bolt, aimed center mass. The RPG gunner was stationary, focused on his own targeting, oblivious to the silent death approaching from a completely different angle. Release. Flight time 1.6 seconds. The bolt impacted the gunner's chest. The shaped charge detonated, and then the RPG warhead exploded. The secondary blast was massive, a fireball that lit up the night, killed 3 nearby guards instantly. The shockwave shattered windows, knocked 2 more men off their feet. The guards who were still conscious began screaming, not tactical communication, not coordinated response, just raw animal terror. Demon weapon, ghost killer, we cannot see it, we cannot hear it. It is the cross curse, like Helmand, we are all going to die. Volkov's paranoia had infected his men. They had heard the stories. The legendary operator who killed in absolute silence. The weapon that left no trace except corpses. And now, 15 years later, history was repeating with his daughter, pulling the trigger. Elena relocated 40 yards laterally along the ridge. Never shoot twice from the same position. Her father's rule, drilled into her until it became instinct. New position, new angle. She acquired the next target. PKM machine gunner on a technical vehicle, sweeping the battlefield with a weapon that could cut through her team like a chainsaw through paper. She aimed through the windshield. Ballistic glass, but the bolt's explosive charge would handle it. 7th bolt, 160 yards. Release. The bolt punched through the windshield, deflected slightly but stayed on target, impacted the gunner's chest. The explosion inside the vehicle cab was confined, amplified. The gunner died instantly. The vehicle disabled, its heavy weapon silenced. Elena was reloading when Red's frantic voice cut through the comms. They have hostages in the open, guns to their heads. They are using them as shields. Through her scope, Elena saw the nightmare scenario. 12 guards remaining, clustered around 6 terrified American civilians in the center of the courtyard. A guard captain, former Russian army by his bearing, was shouting in English. Whoever you are, show yourself or the hostages die. We know you are out there. 30 seconds. 6 hostages, 12 guards, 5 explosive bolts left. The math did not work. Even if every shot was perfect, even if she took 2 guards with each bolt somehow, she could not save them all fast enough. The guard captain pressed his AK-47 against a woman's head. Mid-30s, engineer according to the briefing files. Rebecca something, married, 2 kids. She was crying, shaking, begging in a voice hoarse from screaming. 20 seconds, Reaper's voice. I have no shot. Too many civilians in the line. Elena, what do you want me to do? What did she want him to do? Take the shot and risk hitting a hostage? Watch them die because the mission parameters said no gunfire? Her father had faced choices like this. Had he hesitated? Had he felt this crushing weight of other people's lives balanced on the edge of a trigger pull? 10 seconds, Doc's voice cut through. Team is breaching from the west. Heavy contact. Engaging 12 hostiles. We can create a distraction, but you have got maybe 20 seconds before they execute regardless. 20 seconds, 5 bolts, 12 guards. Unless, Elena's mind raced through the tactical problem. The guards were clustered too tightly. They had formed up instinctively for mutual protection. But that clustering meant she could exploit it. She loaded the 8th bolt, aimed not at a guard but at a point on the ground between 3 of them. If the explosive bolt hit the dirt, the shaped charge would direct its blast upward. The effect would be like a directional mine. 3 targets, 1 bolt. No time to second guess, no time to calculate every variable. She aimed for the ground 18 inches in front of the nearest guard's boots. Release, 1.3 seconds of flight. The bolt buried itself 2 inches into the packed dirt. Detonated. The shaped charge's blast cone caught all 3 guards from knee to chest level. They went down in a tangle of shredded legs and screaming. Not dead, but out of the fight. The remaining 9 guards flinched, ducked, scattered slightly. The formation broke. And in that half-second of chaos, Doc's assault team hit them from the west. Flashbangs detonated with thunder. Smoke grenades deployed. The Northern Alliance fighters poured suppressive fire into the guards' position. Controlled bursts aimed high to avoid the hostages, but enough to force heads down. Elena was already relocating, descending another 30 yards. Getting closer. New range 110 yards. She could see individual faces now, see the fear and rage and confusion. A guard captain, different from the one shouting, was dragging a hostage toward the bunker entrance. 50-some male, gray hair, moving slowly because of his age and terror. The guard had an arm around his throat, AK-47 in the other hand, using the civilian as a shield. 9th bolt. The shot was nearly impossible. The guard's head was partially obscured behind the hostage, maybe 6 inches of target visible. At this range, with the wind, with the angle, a miss would kill an innocent man. Elena centered the crosshair on those 6 inches of visible skull, between the heartbeats, between the breaths. Release, 1.2 seconds. The bolt took the guard in the temple. The explosive charge was small enough and directional enough that the hostage was showered with blood, but otherwise unharmed. The guard's body dropped. The civilian stood frozen in shock, then ran toward Doc's team. 5 hostages remaining, 7 guards still on their feet. But now the guards were panicking for real. Their command structure had collapsed, their heavy weapons destroyed. They were taking fire from 2 directions, and death was arriving from a 3rd direction they could not even identify. Half wanted to flee, half wanted to make a stand. The indecision made them easy targets. Elena loaded the 10th bolt, acquired a guard who had taken cover behind a low wall, firing his AK toward Doc's position. 95 yards. Release. The bolt punched through the concrete wall. Its penetration capability was designed for body armor, but thin masonry worked just as well. The explosion inside killed the guard, collapsed part of the wall. 11th bolt. A sniper on a rooftop, thermal scope, still trying to locate Elena's position. 120 yards, elevated target which meant adjusting for angle. She aimed for center mass. Released. The bolt arced up, impacted the sniper's chest. The explosion threw his body off the roof. He hit the ground 30 feet below, did not move. 5 guards left, 1 explosive bolt remaining. And then Elena saw him, Volkov, still alive, crawling across the courtyard. His left arm was just gone, shoulder destroyed, but he was moving, reaching for something, a detonator, wires leading to the hostages' vests. He was trying to activate the explosives. His hand was shaking. Fear, blood loss, desperation. But if he armed that device, if he pressed the trigger, 6 people died. Everything they had done meant nothing. 12th bolt, final explosive round, 105 yards away, partially concealed behind debris, maybe 8 inches of his shoulder and arm visible. Not a killing shot with a conventional weapon. But the explosive bolt did not need to be a killing shot. It just needed to be close enough. She aimed for his exposed shoulder. Released 1.4 seconds. The bolt impacted the shoulder. The shaped charge detonated. The explosion severed his arm at the elbow. He screamed, collapsed. The detonator, still clutched in his now separated hand, clattered across the ground untriggered. Elena's crossbow was empty. No more explosive bolts. The weapon that had carried her through the impossible was now just 12 pounds of dead weight. She dropped it, drew her Sig Sauer P226. 4 guards remaining, all within 80 yards, all visible now that the smoke was clearing, all armed and desperate and looking for any target to shoot. One saw her, raised his AK, shouted something in Russian. Elena's muscle memory took over. The Sig came up in a smooth draw. Front sight press, double tap to center mass. The suppressor reduced the sound to a sharp crack instead of thunderous report. But after the absolute silence of the crossbow, it might as well have been a cannon. The guard went down. The remaining 3 turned toward the sound. She was already moving, sprinting laterally along the ridge, getting off the line of fire. Bullets cracked past her head, impacting rocks, sending shards of stone spinning. She dove behind a boulder, came up shooting. 2 more guards in her sight line. 100 yards, 90. With a pistol, these were low percentage shots, but low percentage was better than 0. She took the closer guard first, aimed center mass, squeezed 4 times. First 2 missed. 3rd hit shoulder. 4th took him in the throat. He dropped. The 4th guard had found cover behind the disabled technical vehicle, laying down suppressive fire that forced Elena's head down. She could not get an angle, could not advance, could not retreat without exposing herself. And then Reaper's Barrett spoke. The .50 caliber round hit the technical vehicle, punched completely through the engine block. The guard behind it took the spalling. Fragments of metal turned into deadly shrapnel across his chest and face. He staggered out from behind cover, already dying. Doc's team finished him with a 3-round burst. Silence fell across the compound like a curtain. Elena stayed behind her boulder, breathing hard, waiting for more targets. 5 seconds, 10, 15. Doc's voice on comms. Compound secure. Hostages are alive. We are disarming the explosives now. Elena, you still with us? She keyed her radio. Still here, status. 6 hostages, minor injuries, mostly shock and dehydration. Northern Alliance took 3 casualties, all non-critical. We are golden. Reaper. Extraction bird is inbound. ETA 12 minutes. We need to move to the LZ. Red. Negative on that. I am picking up radio chatter. Pakistani military responding to the explosions. Multiple units converging. If we are not out of here in 10 minutes, we are going to have a real problem. Elena descended the ridge, moving fast now that speed mattered more than stealth. Her legs were shaking, adrenaline crash starting. Her hands, which had been rock steady during the shooting, now trembled slightly as she holstered the Sig. She reached the compound floor, walked through the carnage she had created. Bodies, blast craters, the smell of explosives and blood. Volkov's corpse lay in the courtyard center, surrounded by the guards that had died trying to protect him. She stopped beside his body, looked down at the man who had killed her father. 15 years of hunting, 15 years of running, and now he was just meat and memory. She felt nothing, no satisfaction, no closure, just a hollow space where emotion should have been. Doc appeared beside her, medical kit in hand, face grim. You okay? 5 by 5, but we can deal with the trauma later. Right now we need to move. The hostages were clustered near the western building, 6 Americans in rough shape but mobile. Rebecca, the woman who had a gun to her head, saw Elena and started crying again. Stumbled forward, grabbed Elena in a hug that nearly knocked her over. Thank you, Rebecca sobbed. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We thought we were going to die. We heard the explosions and we did not know. You saved us. You are safe now, Elena said. The words felt inadequate. What do you say to someone you just saved? How do you explain that you killed 13 people in less than 5 minutes to give them their lives back? Red was stripping down Volkov's body, taking his phone, his laptop, any intelligence that might prove valuable. She pulled a small tablet from his jacket. Her eyes went wide. Oh, hell. Elena, you need to see this. The tablet was unlocked. Volkov's arrogance or just bad operational security. Red pulled up the email application. Messages going back months. Communications with someone identified only as the broker. Elena scanned the most recent message dated 2 days ago. Volkov, Your paranoia about Cross' daughter is justified. She is more dangerous than her father. But she will not stop me. Meet me in 4 days, Peshawar Safe House. Bring proof you eliminated her. We proceed with Nightfall regardless. Nightfall, Elena said. What is Nightfall? Red scrolled through more emails. Her face went pale. Oh Christ. It is an attack. Multiple coordinated strikes. 12 U.S. military bases. Fort Bragg, Camp Pendleton, Naval Station Norfolk, all the major installations. When? 35 days from now, September 11th. The date was not a coincidence. Maximum psychological impact. Maximum symbolic weight. The broker is funding it, Red continued. $400 million. Weapons, intelligence, access codes. Everything these cells need to pull off simultaneous attacks that would make 9/11 look small. Who is the broker? Unknown. But according to this, he is meeting with 6 regional terrorist cell leaders in 4 days. Peshawar, abandoned compound about 40 clicks inside Pakistan. The helicopter was audible now. Rotors beating the air, coming in fast for a hot extraction. They had maybe 3 minutes before it touched down. 3 minutes before they needed to be aboard. Elena's mind was racing. Volkov had been a middle manager, a facilitator. But the broker was the source, the money, the connections, the architect of attacks that would kill hundreds, maybe thousands. Her father had spent 15 years tracking this network, had gotten close enough that they killed him for it. And now she was standing on the same trail, holding the same evidence, facing the same choice. Walk away, mission complete, hostages saved, Volkov dead, or push deeper into the darkness and finish what her father started. Doc grabbed her arm. Bird is landing. We need to move now. The Northern Alliance helicopter touched down in a storm of dust and noise. Side doors opened. Pilot gesturing frantically. Hurry, hurry. We have got hostiles inbound. Maybe 90 seconds. The hostages were loaded first. Doc helping them aboard, checking them for injuries even as they moved. Red was still downloading data from Volkov's tablet. Reaper had collapsed his Barrett, was covering their withdrawal, scanning for threats. Elena stood in the courtyard, looked at her crossbow lying on the ground where she dropped it, her father's weapon, the tool that had made her what she was. She walked over, picked it up. The stock was scuffed. The string needed replacing. But it had done its job. 13 confirmed kills in her father's hands, 12 more in hers, not a single American casualty. She slung it across her back, ran for the helicopter. They were airborne 30 seconds before Pakistani army vehicles appeared on the ridge. Small arms fire cracked up at them, but the helicopter was already out of effective range. Climbing hard, running dark. The pilot pushing the bird to its limits. Inside the cargo bay, the hostages were crying, laughing, holding each other. Doc was starting triage, checking vitals, making sure the adrenaline was not hiding serious injuries. Reaper was on the radio with Hayes, updating their status. Red sat next to Elena, handed her the tablet. I pulled everything. Communications, financial records, names, dates. This is a complete intelligence package on a network that has been operating for at least 18 years. The broker mentioned in over 200 emails, always careful, never specific, but he is the source. Volkov was terrified of him. Everyone in this network is terrified of him. Do we know where the Peshawar meeting is? Red nodded. Coordinates are in the calendar, 4 days from now, 1400 hours. Abandoned Soviet base about 60 clicks inside Pakistani territory. Can we get there? Red's voice was gentle but firm. Elena, we just completed a miracle operation. We saved 6 lives. We eliminated a major terrorist facilitator. We have actionable intelligence that will let us roll up cells across 3 continents. This is a win, a big win. Going after the broker is a completely different mission, different parameters, and probably 0 official support. Elena thought about her father, about the letter he had left her, about the choice he described between orders and conscience. My father was tracking the broker when he died. I know, and I'm sorry, but revenge is not a mission parameter. This is not revenge, it is prevention. If we let the broker walk away, nightfall happens. 12 bases attacked simultaneously. How many soldiers die? How many families destroyed? Red was quiet for a long moment. Then she pulled up more data on the tablet. The meeting location. It is heavily defended. At least 50 private military contractors, professional soldiers, not local militia. The compound is in hostile territory with no friendly forces within 100 clicks. Extraction would be nearly impossible. And if you are thinking what I think you are thinking, that crossbow is out of ammunition. We have no way to fabricate more explosive bolts. Doc can make them. Doc can try. With limited materials and no proper workshop, maybe he gets you 6 bolts. Maybe they work. Maybe they do not. That is a lot of maybe to bet your life on. The helicopter banked hard, heading toward the Afghan border. Below, the Pakistani landscape rolled past in darkness. Mountains and valleys where armies had fought and died for thousands of years. Elena thought about her father, about the notebook, about what he had written. Some things are worth dying for. Some people need someone to stand between them and evil. That is what guardians do. We pay the price so others can sleep in peace. She keyed her radio to Hayes' frequency. He picked up immediately. Cross, good to hear your voice. Situation. 6 hostages extracted, all alive. 0 friendly casualties. Target eliminated. Mission success. Outstanding. You will have a medal waiting for you. Will not be able to wear it publicly, but you will know what you did. Sir, I need to brief you on secondary intelligence gathered from target communications. She outlined everything. The broker, Nightfall, the meeting in 4 days. The opportunity to eliminate not just a facilitator, but the source. Hayes was silent for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was heavy. Elena, what you are describing is a completely unsanctioned operation. In hostile territory, against a high-value target we cannot even identify. You would be going in blind, with minimal support, against overwhelming opposition. The risk-to-reward ratio is astronomical. The reward is preventing September 11th version 2, or the reward is you and your team dead in a Pakistani ditch and the broker still operational. I cannot authorize this, not officially, not even unofficially. If you do this, you are on your own. No support, no backup, no extraction if it goes wrong. You understood? Another long pause, then Hayes' voice changed, became quieter, more personal. Your father said the same thing to me once. Afghanistan, 2008. Told me he had intelligence on a high-value target, but could not get authorization to pursue. I told him to stand down. What did he do? He did it anyway, and he saved 11 lives before he died. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had supported him instead of ordering him to stop. Hayes took a breath. I cannot authorize this operation, but I can make sure that Northern Alliance helicopter has mechanical problems that keep it grounded for 72 hours. And I can make sure some medical supplies and ammunition mysteriously go missing from Bagram. And I can make sure that if you happen to need emergency extraction from Pakistani airspace, a helicopter with no official markings might be in the general area, purely coincidentally. Elena felt something tight in her chest release. Thank you, sir. Do not thank me. If this goes wrong, I will deny I ever spoke to you. If it goes right, nobody will ever know you did it. That is the deal. That has always been the deal. The helicopter crossed into Afghan airspace. Below the border was just an arbitrary line on a map. Above, stars filled a sky that looked exactly the same on both sides. Geography did not care about nations or politics or the men who fought over them. Doc moved up from the rear of the cargo bay, sat down across from Elena. His face was tired, lined, older than it had been a week ago. Missions did that, wore you down, took something you could never quite get back. I heard your conversation with Hayes, he said. You are going after the broker. Yes. With what ammunition? You used all 12 explosive bolts. You are going to make more. Doc laughed, short and sharp. You have got more faith in me than I do. Those bolts are precision devices, shaped charges, impact detonators. Your father spent 2 years perfecting the design. You think I can replicate that in 72 hours with whatever materials I scrounged from an Afghan military base? I think you are the best combat engineer I ever met. And I think you love my father enough to try. That hit home. Doc's face softened. He looked down at his hands, scarred, calloused, steady even after everything they had done tonight. Thomas saved my life 4 times, he said quietly. Panama, Somalia, twice in Afghanistan. Every time he put himself between me and death. Never hesitated, never asked for anything in return. So yeah, I loved him like a brother, like family. Then help me finish what he started. Doc nodded slowly. I will need 48 hours, access to machine tools, RDX or something I can use as equivalent. Detonators, testing equipment to make sure I do not blow myself up. And even then, I can probably make 6 bolts. Maybe. With about 70% confidence they will work as designed. 70% is better than 0. 70% means 3 out of 10 could be duds, could fail to detonate, could detonate prematurely, could just flat out miss because the weight distribution is slightly off. Are you willing to bet your life on those odds? Elena looked out the helicopter door at the darkness below. Somewhere down there, men were planning to kill her countrymen, to attack bases where soldiers slept in their racks trusting that someone was standing watch, to murder people who would never see it coming. I am willing to bet my life that stopping Nightfall matters more than my personal safety. Reaper had been listening from his position near the cockpit. Now he spoke up, voice carrying over the rotor noise. I am in. Elena looked at him in surprise. You do not have to. Spent 30 years in the Marines, fought in 6 countries, lost too many friends to IEDs and ambushes and attacks that some rich bastard funded from a safe distance. If there is a chance to cut off the head instead of just fighting the limbs, I am taking it. Red stood up from her monitoring station. I have got contacts in Peshawar, smugglers who know the routes. The abandoned Soviet base is accessible through old tunnel systems. I can get you in. Cannot guarantee I can get you out, but I can get you in. Doc looked at the crossbow leaning against Elena's leg. And I assume your plan involves that weapon again, which means I am making explosive bolts. Wonderful. Just what I wanted to do with my retirement, play with high explosives in a third world machine shop. Elena felt something she had not felt since Syria. Not hope exactly, but purpose, direction. The sense that she was exactly where she needed to be, doing exactly what she needed to do. 72 hours, she said. We prep, we plan, we execute. The broker dies in Pakistan, and Nightfall dies with him. The helicopter carried them through the night, away from one battle and toward another. Behind them, the compound burned, evidence consumed, witnesses silenced by death or distance. Ahead, somewhere in the darkness, a man who called himself the broker was planning atrocities. He did not know that Elena Cross was coming for him. He did not know about the weapon that killed in silence. He did not know that some debts get paid in blood and some missions matter more than survival. He would learn. They always did, right before they stopped breathing. The safe house smelled like gun oil and bad coffee. 48 hours of preparation. 48 hours of Doc hunched over a makeshift workbench, muttering curses as he machined shaped charge tips from salvaged RPG warheads. 48 hours of Red coordinating with smugglers and mercenaries and people who lived in the spaces between nations. 48 hours of Reaper field stripping and reassembling his Barrett until the rifle was an extension of his body. And 48 hours of Elena maintaining her father's crossbow, knowing that the next time she used it might be the last. The bolt stock Doc produced looked right, balanced correctly in her hand. The explosive tips were slightly cruder than her father's original design. The machining less precise. The RDX charges potentially inconsistent, but they would penetrate armor and detonate on impact. Probably. 70% probability, Doc had said. 70% that each bolt would work as intended. 30% chance of catastrophic failure. Those were not good odds, but they were the only odds available. On the morning of the 3rd day, Red spread a map across the table. Satellite imagery of the target compound. An abandoned Soviet garrison from the Cold War, now repurposed as a meeting site for people who preferred to conduct business far from surveillance and laws. The compound sits in a valley, Red explained, tracing the terrain with her finger. Surrounded by low hills, multiple buildings mostly collapsed. But the central courtyard is intact. That is where meetings happen. Good sight lines, easy to defend, 50-plus private military contractors providing security. How do we get close? Elena asked. There is a drainage system. Soviet engineers built it to handle runoff from the mountains. Runs underground for about 2 kilometers. Emerges inside the compound perimeter. My contacts used it for smuggling back in the 90s. Should still be navigable. Should be. Has not been used in 15 years. Could be collapsed. Could be flooded. Could be full of unexploded ordnance. We'll not know until we are inside. Reaper studied the imagery. Overwatch position? Red pointed to a structure on the compound edge. Water tower, concrete construction, 60 feet high, clear line of sight to the courtyard, 280 yards. Elena did the math automatically. 280 yards with the crossbow, Extreme range, maximum drop compensation. Wind would be unpredictable in the valley. Heat shimmer would distort the target, and she would need to make the shot count because the broker would only be exposed for minutes, not hours. What about extraction? Doc asked. Red's expression darkened. That is the problem. Pakistani military has increased patrols since the Volkov raid. They know something happened. They are looking for us. Once we hit this target, we will have maybe 10 minutes before they converge. The smugglers can get us motorcycles to the Afghan border, but it is a 40-kilometer run through hostile territory. 10 minutes, Reaper said, to eliminate the target, confirm the kill, and get out. That is tight. It is impossible, Doc corrected, but so was everything we did 3 days ago, so apparently we are in the business of impossible now. Elena loaded the 6 explosive bolts into her tactical quiver. Checked the crossbow string tension. Verified the scope 0. The weapon felt heavier than it had before. Or maybe she was just more aware of what it represented. Her father's legacy, her own choices, the weight of lives that would be saved or lost based on her precision. Hayes' voice crackled through the encrypted satellite phone. Final check. You are certain you want to do this? Affirmative. The intelligence indicates the broker is a high-level asset, possibly government-affiliated, possibly military. If you eliminate him, there will be consequences, questions, investigations. Then they can investigate after Nightfall is canceled. Hayes was quiet for a moment. Your father said something similar once. Right before he went on the mission that killed him, he said some things matter more than coming home. I hope you understand what you are risking. I do. Good luck, Cross. Make your father proud. The connection terminated. Elena looked at her team, Doc with his medical kit and his improvised explosives. Red with her communication gear and her network of dubious contacts. Reaper with his Barrett and his 30 years of killing people who needed killing. We leave in 1 hour, she said. We infiltrate at night. We establish position before dawn. The meeting is scheduled for 1400 hours. We will have one shot. Literally, make sure you are ready. 1 hour later, they were in a truck driving toward the Pakistani border. Red smuggler contacts. 3 men who looked like they would kill you for pocket change, but had been paid enough to pretend to care about loyalty, drove them through checkpoints with forged papers and bribes that ensured nobody looked too closely at the cargo. They crossed into Pakistan at midnight. The landscape was dark, hostile, ancient. Mountains that had seen empires rise and fall, valleys where armies had fought and died and been forgotten by everyone except the bones buried in the soil. The truck stopped 15 kilometers from the target. Red's contacts pointed toward a dry riverbed and spoke in rapid Pashto. Red translated. Drainage entrance is 2 kilometers that way. They will wait here for 4 hours. After that, we are on our own. 4 hours, Reaper said, to infiltrate, eliminate, and extract. No pressure. They moved through the darkness with night vision goggles, turning the world into green-tinted shapes. The drainage entrance was exactly where Red's intelligence said it would be. A concrete tunnel mouth half buried in sand and debris, rusted grating torn away by time and neglect. Elena went first. The crossbow was strapped across her back, the 6 precious bolts secured in her quiver. She dropped into the tunnel and immediately understood why this route had not been used in 15 years. The tunnel was tight, 4 feet in diameter, concrete walls slick with moisture and something that might have been algae or might have been something worse. The smell was overwhelming. Decay and stagnant water and the peculiar stench of places long abandoned. They crawled, 2 kilometers of crawling through darkness, following Red's navigation, trusting that the tunnel would not collapse or flood or dead end into a wall they could not pass. Elena's shoulders scraped the walls, her knees ground against concrete. The crossbow caught on protrusions, and she had to shift and adjust to force herself through spaces that seemed too small for a human body. Behind her, she could hear Doc breathing hard, struggling with his age and his bad knee and his refusal to be left behind. 1 kilometer. Her arms were shaking. Her back screamed. Claustrophobia clawed at her throat. But she pushed it down, kept moving, focused on the next 3 feet and then the next 3 feet after that. 2 kilometers took forever, an eternity compressed into 90 minutes of crawling through hell. And then light ahead, faint, filtered through cracks. They emerged in a collapsed building on the compound's eastern edge. Early morning light was just beginning to touch the horizon. They had perhaps 30 minutes before the compound fully woke. Red checked her GPS. Water tower is 80 meters northwest. Security patrols every 20 minutes. Window in 3 minutes. They waited, counted seconds. When Red gave the signal, they moved. The water tower was concrete and rust, a monument to Soviet engineering that had outlasted the empire that built it. Internal ladder mostly intact. They climbed 60 feet in darkness, emerging onto a platform that offered a perfect view of the central courtyard. 280 yards. Elena verified the range with her laser rangefinder, set up her shooting position. The crossbow rested on a sandbag that Reaper had carried in his pack. She verified the scope 0, checked wind direction, currently 6 miles per hour from the south. Began the mental calculations she would need when the target appeared. Then they waited. 6 hours sitting in complete stillness. No movement except to drink water from a tube. No sound except breathing. The sun rose and turned the water tower into an oven. Temperature climbed to 90 degrees. Elena's uniform was soaked with sweat, but she did not move, did not adjust position, did not do anything that might attract attention from the security patrols below. At noon, activity increased. Vehicles began arriving. SUVs with tinted windows, technical trucks with mounted weapons, men in tactical gear, professional soldiers, not local militia, establishing security perimeters. Red was monitoring communications with her directional antenna. 6 different groups arriving, cell leaders from across the region. This is it. This is the meeting. 1,300 hours, 1 hour until the scheduled meeting time. Elena loaded the first explosive bolt, checked the charge seating, verified the detonator was armed. The bolt felt right, balanced, solid. But Doc's warning echoed in her mind. 70% chance it works correctly, 30% chance of failure. 13:30. The courtyard was filling with men, 30-plus security personnel taking positions, 6 men in expensive clothing. The cell leaders, being escorted to a table in the courtyard center. Red's voice was tight. Helicopter inbound, 2 minutes out. Elena shifted the crossbow slightly, tracking the horizon. The helicopter appeared. A civilian Bell 412, white with no markings. It circled once, checking the security situation, then descended toward the landing zone in the courtyard's north end. The rotors kicked up dust. Security personnel turned away, shielding their eyes. The helicopter touched down. The side door opened. A man stepped out. Through her scope, Elena saw him clearly. Mid-60s, tall, Western features, expensive suit despite the heat. Wide-brimmed hat and aviator sunglasses that obscured his face. He moved with the confidence of someone accustomed to power. Security personnel deferred to him. The 6 cell leaders stood as he approached. This was the broker. Had to be. The bearing, the response he generated, everything indicated high status. But Elena could not confirm identity, could not see his face. And shooting an unidentified target in Pakistani territory would create an international incident that could destroy careers and start wars. Red, she whispered, facial recognition. Red had her telephoto camera trained on the target. Working on it, need him to remove the hat and glasses. The broker walked to the table, shook hands with the cell leaders, sat down at the head, began speaking. Red's directional microphone picked up audio, but it was faint, distorted by distance and wind. Gentlemen, the voice said, educated, American accent. Project Nightfall represents 18 months of planning. He was listing targets. Fort Bragg, Camp Pendleton, Naval Station Norfolk, the 12 military bases that would be hit simultaneously. The coordination required, the weapons provided, the intelligence that would make it possible. Red was frantically photographing, trying to get a clear image. But the hat brim and sunglasses created shadows that defeated facial recognition. The system could not get enough data points. 90 seconds passed. The broker continued his presentation, pulling out documents, passing them around, discussing timelines and contingencies. Then he paused, reached up, removed his hat to wipe sweat from his forehead. His face was visible, full profile, clear image. Red's facial recognition system processed, searched databases, found a match. Red's sharp intake of breath told Elena everything she needed to know before the analyst even spoke. Oh my God, that is Senator Harrison Webb, United States Senate, Armed Services Committee Chairman. Elena's world narrowed to the scope in the target and the impossibility of what Red had just said. Senator Harrison Webb, 40 years in Congress, Vietnam veteran, Bronze Star, Purple Heart, every major defense appropriations bill since the 80s had his fingerprints on it. He testified before Congress, advised presidents, the most respected voice on national security in Washington. An American hero, and a traitor funding terrorist attacks against his own country. Reaper's voice was hollow. Jesus Christ, how deep does this go? Deep enough that he has been playing both sides for 40 years, Red said. Her voice was shaking. Funding the enemies he was supposed to be fighting. Sending soldiers to die in wars he helped create. Getting rich off the defense contracts to fight the terrorists he is funding. Doc's voice. If we kill him, we will be hunted forever. Traitors who assassinated an American hero. Nobody will believe the truth. I have got recordings, Red said. I have got photos. I have got his communications with Volkov. I can prove it. But it will take time to leak, to get the evidence out without getting killed. Months, maybe years. Elena kept her eye pressed to the scope. Webb was standing now, gesturing as he spoke, discussing attack timelines. 32 days until September 11th. Discussing casualties. Hundreds, maybe thousands of American soldiers and civilians. Discussing it like a business presentation. Cold and clinical. Completely detached from the human cost. Hayes' voice crackled through the satellite phone. Urgent. Stand down, I repeat, stand down, identity confirmed. This goes to the highest levels of government. Do not engage, that is a direct order. Elena's finger rested on the trigger. 2.2 pounds of pressure. That is all it would take. One squeeze and the bolt would fly, and Webb would die, and Nightfall would die with him. But she would be a traitor. Her team would be hunted. Their lives would be destroyed, and Webb's legacy would remain intact while they were painted as assassins who murdered an American hero. Her father's letter echoed in her mind, the one she had read 100 times, the one that had guided every decision since his death. If you ever face the choice between orders and conscience, choose conscience. Real honor is not about following rules. It is about doing what is right when it costs everything. She thought about the soldiers sleeping in their racks at Fort Bragg, about the families living on base at Camp Pendleton, about the sailors aboard ships at Norfolk, thousands of people who would die if Nightfall proceeded, people who would never know how close they came to death, people who would never know that someone chose to save them. Elena, Doc's voice was gentle. Whatever you decide, we are with you. Reaper. He is a traitor. The uniform means nothing if you betray it. Red. I will document everything. The world will know the truth eventually. Elena made her decision. She began the final calculations. Range 280 yards. Wind 8 miles per hour from the south, gusting to 12. Temperature 89 degrees Fahrenheit, creating severe mirage effect. The heat shimmer made Webb's image dance and distort. He appeared to be 6 inches left of his actual position. The math was complex. Bolt drop at this range 112 inches, wind drift 22 inches. Mirage compensation aim 8 inches right of the visual target to hit the actual position. Temperature affecting air density, slightly increasing bolt velocity. And she had to do it all in the next 30 seconds because Webb was finishing his presentation. Would sit down, would be obscured by the other cell leaders and security personnel. 30 seconds for a shot that would define the rest of her life. She loaded the calculations into muscle memory, adjusted the scope, found the point in space where Webb would be when the bolt arrived 2.4 seconds after release. Her breathing fell into the rhythm, 4 counts in, 8 counts out. Hold at half exhale. Her heart rate dropped, 62 beats per minute, high for a precision shot but acceptable given the circumstances. Webb turned toward one of the cell leaders. Perfect angle, center mass exposure, no obstructions. Elena found the space between heartbeats. Her father's voice. Memory made real. Between the beats, fear does not exist. Only the shot exists. She squeezed the trigger. The release was perfect, smooth, inevitable. The bolt left the rail at 410 feet per second. Webb was gesturing, mid-sentence, explaining some detail about attack coordination. The bolt arced high, compensating for distance and gravity. 2.4 seconds of flight time. Elena watched through the scope. The vapor trail was barely visible in the heat shimmer. The bolt descended. Webb turned slightly. The movement put him exactly where Elena had predicted. The bolt impacted center chest, slightly left of the sternum. The shaped charge detonated. 45 grams of RDX exploding with directional force that punched through his suit, through his ribs, through his heart and lungs. Webb was thrown backward 8 feet. He hit the ground, did not move. The courtyard exploded into chaos. Security personnel drew weapons, scanning for the shooter. The 6 cell leaders dove for cover. Someone was screaming orders in Arabic. The helicopter pilot started his engines, preparing for emergency extraction, and 2 private military contractors at the base of the water tower looked up and saw the shooting position. "Sniper! Water tower!" Reaper's voice. "We are compromised. Move now." Elena grabbed the crossbow and ran for the ladder. Behind her, Reaper was providing covering fire with the Barrett. Massive 50 caliber rounds that made the PMCs take cover and bought them precious seconds. She hit the ladder, descended as fast as physics allowed. 20 feet from the bottom, gunfire erupted. Bullets punched through the concrete walls around her. She swung off the ladder, dropped the final 15 feet, rolled to absorb the impact. Pain shot through her ankle, but she forced herself up and ran. The courtyard was 80 meters away. Between her and the drainage tunnel entrance were 30-plus hostile soldiers who now knew where she was. Doc threw smoke grenades. Purple smoke billowed across the compound, obscuring sight lines. Red was on the radio with the smugglers. "Exfil now. North perimeter. 3 minutes." They ran through the smoke. Bullets cracked past. An RPG screamed overhead, detonated against a building, showering them with debris. Elena's lungs burned. Her ankles screamed with every step. But she kept moving because stopping meant dying. A PMC emerged from the smoke directly in front of her. He raised his rifle. She dropped the crossbow, drew her Sig Sauer in one motion. Double tap to center mass. He went down. She kept running. The drainage tunnel entrance was ahead. 50 meters, 40, 30. An explosion behind them. Reaper's Barrett finding an RPG team before they could reload. Doc was limping, blood soaking through his pant leg. Red grabbed his arm, helped him move faster. 20 meters. A guard appeared in their path. Elena shot him, kept moving. 10 meters. They reached the tunnel entrance and dove inside, back into the darkness, back into the claustrophobic hell they had crawled through hours ago. But this time they were not being careful or quiet. They were moving as fast as anatomy allowed, racing against the PMCs who would follow, racing against Pakistani military who would converge, racing against time running out. 2 kilometers of crawling, forever compressed into 20 minutes of panicked flight. Elena's hands were bleeding. Her knees were torn. Her ankle was swelling inside her boot. But she crawled. Behind them, flashlight beams. Voices. The PMCs had entered the tunnel. Doc stopped crawling, turned back, pulled something from his vest. "Keep going," he said. "I will slow them down." "Doc, no. I am 62 years old with a bullet in my leg. I am slowing you down. Get to the extraction point. Tell Hayes what we did. Tell the world what Webb was. We are not leaving you. You do not have a choice." He armed the claymore mine he had prepared, wedged it into the tunnel, set the tripwire. "This will collapse about 50 meters of tunnel. Buy you 10 minutes. Use them." Reaper grabbed Elena's arm. "He is right. Move now." They crawled, left Doc behind in the darkness with his mind and his determination. 30 seconds later, the explosion hammered through the tunnel, a shock wave that knocked dust from the ceiling and collapsed the passage behind them, sealing Doc on the wrong side, sealing him with the PMCs who would kill him. Elena wanted to scream, wanted to go back, but Reaper was pulling her forward and Red was navigating, and the mission was not complete until they reported, until they delivered the intelligence, until Webb's treason was exposed. They emerged from this tunnel into morning light. The smugglers were waiting with motorcycles. 3 bikes, engines running, drivers looking terrified and angry. 40 kilometers to the border, Red said. Pakistani army is converging. We have got maybe 15 minutes before they cut off the road. They mounted the bikes. Elena rode behind one smuggler, Reaper behind another, Red behind the third. The bikes roared to life, and they raced across terrain that was more obstacle course than road. Behind them, helicopters appeared on the horizon, Pakistani military responding to the explosion, the gunfire, the chaos of a firefight in their sovereign territory. The bikes pushed 80 kilometers per hour across ground that should have required half that speed. Elena held on and prayed and thought about Doc sacrificing himself so they could complete the mission. 30 kilometers, 20, 10. A Pakistani army truck appeared ahead, blocking the road. Soldiers deployed, weapons raised. The smugglers did not slow down. They veered off-road, engines screaming, racing through a wadi that paralleled the road. Bullets cracked past, but the bikes were moving too fast, kicking up too much dust. 5 kilometers to the border. The Afghan side was visible now, a ridge that marked the boundary between nations. Northern Alliance fighters waiting with weapons, ready to provide covering fire if needed. 2 kilometers. Pakistani helicopters were closing. One made a gun run, door gunner firing, rounds stitching the ground. The smuggler Reaper was riding with took 3 rounds to the back. The bike went down in a tumbling crash. Reaper rolled clear, came up running. Elena's driver circled back. Reaper grabbed on and they accelerated again. 1 kilometer. The border ridge. Afghan fighters opened fire on the pursuing helicopters, not trying to kill, but forcing them to break off, to respect the international boundary, to stop short of creating a larger incident. They crossed into Afghanistan at 90 kilometers per hour, bikes flying over the ridge, landing hard on the far side. Safe. They had made it. Elena dismounted and immediately collapsed. Her ankle gave out. Her body gave out. Everything she had held together for the last 6 hours fell apart. Red was beside her, checking for injuries. Reaper was on the radio with Hayes, delivering a situation report. The Northern Alliance fighters were congratulating them in Pashto, and Doc was gone. 72 hours later, Elena sat in a classified briefing room in Germany. Hayes stood at the head of the table. On the screen behind him, news footage played. CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera. Every major outlet. Retired Senator Harrison Webb killed in terrorist attack during private security consultation in Pakistan. Senate to hold memorial. President to attend funeral. That was the official story, the sanitized version, the lie that protected institutions and reputations. But Red had done her work. Over the next 8 months, anonymous data dumps appeared, encrypted communications, financial records, meeting recordings, satellite imagery of Webb at known terrorist compounds. Slowly, methodically, the truth leaked out. American hero or traitor? Time magazine would ask 6 months later. Congressional investigations would be launched. Military reviews of Webb's entire 40-year career. Conspiracy theories would explode across social media. But the team's involvement would remain classified. Top secret. Sealed for 75 years. Hayes looked at Elena and Reaper in red. The official record will show that Webb died in a terrorist attack. Unofficially, you prevented Project Nightfall. All 6 cell leaders were arrested or eliminated using the intelligence you gathered. 12 planned attacks stopped before they could be executed. Thousands of lives saved. At what cost? Elena asked quietly. Henry Kane is listed as killed in action during a classified operation. He will receive full honors, his family will receive his benefits, and he will be remembered as what he was, a hero who gave everything. Elena thought about the old medic crawling through darkness with a bullet in his leg. Setting a mine, buying them time, choosing to save them because that is what operators did. They stood between evil and innocence. They paid the price so others would not have to. Hayes handed her a file. Your after-action report, classified, but for the record, Elena Cross, 13 confirmed eliminations with experimental weapon system, longest combat crossbow engagement in recorded history at 280 yards. 0 friendly casualties until final extraction. Mission success. It does not feel like success. It never does. Your father said the same thing after every mission. But success is not measured in how you feel. It is measured in the people who get to go home because you did your job. 6 months later, Elena stood in front of a class at the Naval Special Warfare Training Center. 8 students, 5 male, 3 female, all special operations candidates with top secret clearances. Advanced unconventional weapon systems, she said. Some of you are wondering why you are here, why we are teaching crossbow techniques in the era of smart bombs and drones. She picked up her father's crossbow from the table. The stock was worn now. The notches had been filled with wood putty and refinished. 13 kills that would never be publicly acknowledged, plus 1 more, 14 total. Modern warfare is about signatures, thermal, acoustic, electromagnetic. Every weapon leaves traces, creates patterns, can be detected and defended against. She loaded a training bolt, non-explosive, just a broadhead tip. But this weapon, silent, cool, subsonic, it kills in ways that enemy sensors cannot detect and enemy tactics cannot counter. She walked to the range, set up at 150 yards, a ballistic gel torso with body armor. The students watched as she raised the crossbow, as her breathing fell into the rhythm, as she found the space between heartbeats. The bolt released. Flight time 1.7 seconds. Impact center mass The training bolt punched through level 4 ceramic plates and buried itself 8 inches into the gel torso. Perfect silence, perfect lethality. One of the students, a female Army Ranger, 26 years old, spoke up. "Ma'am, is it true you made a 280-yard shot with that weapon in combat?" "I made the shot I was trained to make. But the range does not matter. What matters is understanding your weapon, your environment, and your purpose. My father taught me that fear is natural. Doubt is natural. The impossible shot seems impossible right up until you make it." After class, Reaper found her on the private range. He had taken a position as a civilian contractor, training the next generation, unable to fully walk away from the life. "Heard your lecture, very inspiring. I hate lecturing." "Your father hated it too, but he did it because he understood that skills die when they are not passed on. That is why he taught you everything, so it would not die with him." Elena looked at the crossbow. "Sometimes I wonder if he knew, if he understood that teaching me would put me on the same path that killed him. He knew, and he did it anyway, because some things matter more than safety. Some missions matter more than coming home." They stood in silence for a moment. Then Reaper handed her something, a worn leather notebook. Doc's journal, from the mission. He left it in his gear before he went into the tunnel. The last entry was dated the morning of the final operation. Elena opened it. Doc's handwriting, precise, methodical. "Elena reminds me so much of Thomas. Same determination, same precision, same willingness to do what is necessary even when it costs everything. I am 62 years old. I have lived a full life. If I have to buy them time with my life today, it is a fair trade. Some debts you pay forward. Thomas saved me 4 times. Today I save his daughter once. We are even." Elena closed the journal. Her throat was tight. "He did not have to," she said. "None of us have to. That is what makes it matter. We choose. Every time. To stand between evil and innocence. To be the ones who pay the price. Your father chose it. Doc chose it. You chose it." "And what did we win?" Reaper gestured to the training facility around them. To the students learning to be warriors. To the country beyond that would never know how close it had come to catastrophe. "We won another day. Another chance. Another generation who gets to live because we were willing to die. That is all we ever win, but it is enough." That evening, Elena visited Arlington National Cemetery. Her father's grave. Fresh flowers placed by her mother, who still came every week after 16 years. The headstone was simple: Master Chief Thomas Cross, United States Navy, 1965 to 2009. Devoted father, silent guardian. Elena knelt, placed something beside the flowers. A single crossbow bolt. Training round, not explosive, symbolic. "I finished it, Dad. The mission you started. The broker is dead. Nightfall is canceled. Doc did not make it. He saved us at the end, went out like you did, buying time for others. He said to tell you we are even now." The wind rustled through the cemetery. Thousands of white headstones, thousands of sacrifices, wars won and lost, prices paid. "I understand now what you tried to teach me. That some weapons are not about power. They are about precision. That some missions are not about coming home. They are about making sure others can. That real honor is doing what is right when it costs everything." She stood, looked at the crossbow bolt beside the flowers. "I held my breath like you taught me. Did not breathe until the shot was perfect. Did not breathe until the mission was complete. And when it was over, when the broker was dead and nightfall was stopped, I finally breathed again." The sun was setting, painting the sky in colors that looked almost peaceful. Elena walked through the cemetery, past rows of honored dead, and felt something she had not felt since before Syria. Not peace exactly, not closure, but acceptance. She was her father's daughter, carrier of his legacy, wielder of his weapon. And like him, she would stand between evil and innocence for as long as she could hold the line. Because some debts get paid in blood, some missions matter more than survival, and sometimes the oldest weapons are still the deadliest. 1 year after the mission, Elena returned to Arlington. This time there were 2 graves side by side in Section 60. Master Chief Thomas Cross, 1965 to 2000. Senior Chief Petty Officer Henry Kane, 1962 to 2024. Navy Cross, Brother in Arms. Doc's headstone was new. Fresh carved granite, the Navy Cross medal displayed. For extraordinary heroism. The citation was classified, but the medal spoke for itself. Elena knelt between both graves, placed a bolt beside each. Training rounds. symbols of what they had taught her, what they had given her, what they had died for. "You were right, Doc," she said quietly, "about everything, about duty, about honor, about standing in the gap, about paying the price so others do not have to." She pulled out Doc's journal. "Read the last entry again. Some debts you pay forward. I am paying it forward now, teaching the next generation, making sure your sacrifice was not wasted, making sure the skills survive, making sure someone is always standing watch." The wind carried her words away, carried them to wherever warriors went when they fell, to that place between heartbeats where fear did not exist, where only duty remained, where legends lived forever. Elena stood. The crossbow was strapped to her back. 14 notches now. 14 lives ended so thousands could live. Her father's legacy, Doc's legacy, her legacy. She walked through the cemetery as the sun touched the horizon. Behind her, the grave stood silent. Guardians resting after their watch had ended. Ahead, the world continued, unaware, ungrateful, sleeping peacefully because warriors had paid the price. Between the heartbeats, that is where warriors lived. That is where they found the strength to do what was right, even when the world called it wrong. That is where they made the impossible shots and impossible choices and impossible sacrifices. Between the heartbeats, where fathers became legends, where medics became heroes, where daughters learned that honor was not about glory or recognition or thanks. It was about standing watch in the darkness so others could see the light. Elena reached the cemetery gate, turned back one last time. The sun was almost gone now, shadows stretching long across white stones. In the fading light, she could almost see them, her father and Doc, standing together, watching her, proud. She touched her hand to her heart, then to the crossbow on her back. A salute, a promise, a continuation of something that would never truly end as long as someone was willing to carry the weapon and stand the watch and make the shot when everything depended on it. The gate closed behind her. The cemetery fell into darkness. But in that darkness, two new names were added to the eternal roster of those who gave everything, who chose duty over orders, honor over safety, sacrifice over survival. Master Chief Thomas Cross, Senior Chief Henry Kane, and in time when her watch finally ended, Lieutenant Commander Elena Cross would join them. But not today. Today there were students to teach, skills to pass on, another generation to prepare for the moment when they would face their own impossible choice, when they would have to decide between the easy path and the right path, when they would have to find that space between heartbeats where fear disappeared and only the mission remained. Elena Cross walked into the night. A warrior carrying the torch passed to her by warriors. The cycle unbroken, the watch unending, the legacy eternal. Some debts are paid in blood. Some missions matter more than survival. And sometimes between the heartbeats is where heroes are born and legends never die. The last shot had been fired. The mission was complete. But the war went on. It always did. And as long as it did, there would be someone standing in the gap. Someone making the impossible shot. Someone paying the price. Between the heartbeats, where guardians live forever. The end.